So the one thing I can tell you is they're not going to be like us. These things that we're building are not going to be people. And these things that we're summoning into the world now are not demons, but they're not good, they're not evil. The same way that you don't care about an ant is the same way they're not going to care about you. There are entities that are not going to be aligned with what we want.
There's a plan and a scheme to merge man with machines, to reprogram our genes, to replace human beings with something obscene, a transhuman dream, a self-aware robot that can't be redeemed, a puppet on strings with programmable brains, a mixture of iron and clay in its veins, the legal man seed with nanotechnologies, and demo the mark of the beast artificially, bypass the boundaries of death and biology. Isn't this stop all decay, reverse entropy, quantum computer control powered memories, customized bionic babies in factories, born with androgynous genderless pedigrees, grown with no souls, without an identity, molded identically, all grown synthetically, alchemically, merging their minds with technology, entranced and enthralled, a chance to evolve, a trance that has captured, enchanted them all, a plan that involves transcending the fall, transhumanist movement, translucent cabal, entranced and enthralled, a chance to evolve, a trance that has captured, enchanted them all, a plan that involves transcending the fall, transhumanist movement, translucent cabal, like a morbid assortment of Frankenstein forces, control rigor mortis and zombified corpses, distortions like hybridized flesh-covered cyborgs, assortments of warlocks and sorcerers, shaman imposters who summon up automaton monsters, homunculus minions, mechanical demons. Long ago are their wands and their rattles and chants, or their voodoo-like trances and drumming and dancing. Advanced are the hijinks and latest contraptions with gadgets and gizmos to sync their distractions, adapting to tap into unmapped dimensions, to overlap quantum and tangled connections, bizarre spooky action controlled from a distance, like visitors come to assist us. There is no resistance and no one's suspicious. They're wicked and twisted magicians and their mission is endless, entranced and enthralled, a chance to evolve, a trance that has captured, enchanted them all, a plan that involves transcending the fall, transhumanist movement, translucent cabal, entranced and enthralled, a chance to evolve, a trance that has captured, enchanted them all, a plan that involves transcending the fall, transhumanist movement, translucent cabal.
This transition is really massively important for our entire species to navigate, and nobody is paying attention. This thing is happening in the background, and underneath it all is this rising tsunami that, if we're not careful, is going to wipe us all out.
I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world. When they see me coming, most people turn around and start to running because they find it strange. I speak another language because I was adopted by the God of changes. Yes. The old man into a new creature. Don't mess with men in black because they try to heat you with this thing called temptation. Have you go into a world called damnation. And on this earth there's a lot of us. I am not alone. Bunch of ETs waiting on the phone home. And when the call's answered, we gone in the rapture. Warp speed, faster than the Enterprise can catch us. Don't call no Will Smith, he cannot save the day. Jesus set me free, Independence Day. And if you wanna know which world I come from, it's not on the map, but it's near the sun. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien.
I'm a foreigner, a visitor, a stranger to this earth. I made my journey here by the way of second birth. Not through the womb, but by His Spirit and His grace. Transform me from within because I'm from another place. Metamorphosis, mutations, He made modifications. He changed me from within and created alterations. Emerged and reborn my human form as an illusion. The only thing close to proof of evolution. This body will decay, I'm a temporary resident. My soul is eternal, separated from the elements. I've mutated, I'm a stranger, I'm a new man. A traveler and a tourist to this crazy land. You'll cross a path with some creatures from another place. And if you ask us how we got here, we will say by grace. We're not the type you think that fly around in spaceships. We follow Christ and unlike them we really exist.
I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That's me an alien. I am not of this world that we live in. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien. Alienated. That makes me an alien.
Behold the man. Behold the man.
You either get right or get left. Ain't going nowhere, but you're taking many steps. Treadmill, homie, you just wasting your breath. But I know a breath breather. Inhale, exhale, life will feed ya. And what manner of man is this to feed a whole crowd with 5 loaves and a couple of fish? He's my daddy, my Abba, my father, my Jehovah Jireh. Talk to him, and he's more than this, more than whips, chicks in a bottle of Chris. So catch up to the realest. It's funny how the truth hurts and they scared to feel it. Things about to change cause Young Tef in the building. Heaven descended, I'm a vessel that's willing. New age penicillin, bring life for the living.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, He gave His life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the 3rd day he came alive.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, He gave His life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the 3rd day he came alive.
What has become of this world and what has happened to me? Son of sin for temptation for the pleasure it brings. Wake up, yo, cause time is just slipping away. Rearrange your position and dodge this blame. Now it's my time to take responsibility to take that blame. Cause my head's messed up and now I'm feeling the pain. I pray to God to take this curse of my soul. I see the devil straight burning, yearning out of control. One less for him that makes one closer to thee. Our Lord Jesus Christ saving souls indeed. He's got the love to overpower even me. So let's pray for better days and evil brain. But my mind's been up in smoke. I said straight clouded, not comprehending the Almighty, but I be shouting. Now hear the word I spoke, it was hypocritical, but it's 208 and it's a subliminal message.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, He gave His life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the 3rd day he came alive.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, He gave His life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the 3rd day he came alive.
In the name of Christ Jesus, we have been called to proclaim His message of forgiveness. Maybe you never even heard this, but He is calling you now cause He wants you as a witness. You have been born to believe. It's like an instinct inherent, ingrained in your conscience. He is our Father and Savior, and so we sing and praise and exalt our Creator. Follow the truth and believe. We are redeemed by the price that He paid on the tree. Our penalty intervened. By His grace we are saved for eternity. A sacrifice for
Behold
our
the man.
peoples. It's a gift that He gave us, a gift for the
Behold
sequel.
the man.
Read the word and consume it. Come on and feed and indulge on the fruit of the Spirit.
Behold the man. Behold the man.
Happy Happy Saturday night, everybody. It is a wonderful day. It's cloudy and gloomy here. I don't know what it's like there.
It's been raining, but that's not a bad thing. I mean,
Same here. Raining.
I got a link here about the Euphrates drying up, so I'm never going to complain about rain.
Well, for updates, I wanted to mention that in Discord, which I now talk about, I have a channel for free man resources, and I found a great website with multiple pages of information that you can carry with yourself if you are choosing not to be a known party to commerce and having a driver's license, getting license plates, and getting insurance knowingly, and giving up your rights, and how to handle that. Also, many Supreme Court rulings that back that you are just a driver and not you are a traveler and not a driver of commerce. It is such a good website. It's in the Freeman resources near the bottom of all the channels. This guy has so much information in there. It's amazing. He even has a questionnaire that you can give to police when they pull you over, because they shouldn't be pulling you over and asking you for anything unless they believe you've committed a crime, and a crime consists of a victim and a perpetrator. And so it's a whole questionnaire that they would have to fill out. I'm sorry.
Hello?
That you heard me, but they
okay.
didn't. I had to yell at the children to please quiet down. Anyway,
Praise God.
I
that you have
did
children
mute
now.
myself to try to ask them to please be quiet. They were arguing. But this website has so much stuff to it. He's even got his own lawsuits and income that he's not trying to earn income, but he has received payback for the times that they've arrested him or other wasted time. And so that's one of the things on this questionnaire that he gives police, is that I hope you're aware that if none of these things are necessary, if we're not in the middle of an emergency or a crime, that you could possibly owe up to $100,000 for every 5 minutes I'm detained. The guy got $250,000 for having to spend a night in jail unlawfully. So again, it's not like he's out there trying to, well, who cares if he is, but what I would like people to consider is you can actually sue these police themselves if they go trample your rights and detain you for no reason, or arrest you for no reason, or put you in jail. So my appearance is coming up soon, sort of, November 22nd, for the no insurance ticket, for which I will be presenting the evidence of how I was traveling, not driving. But I also will be demanding they reimburse me for the time wasted having to deal with police and having to appear in court in another city, not my own. So that'll be interesting to be updating. That's my most recent update of the day. But when we were talking this morning, we talked a lot about some things we may interact on. But we named, you can tell us, everybody, why we named it. What did we name this again?
Behold a dark
Behold
horse.
a dark horse, yes.
Well, it reminded me of the book title by William Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse, which is a reference to Revelation 6, I think. So, it was a little bit like that, only we would be focusing on the black horse. And a friend of mine sent me a link for a Katy Perry song, and I had never heard it before. And when I watched it, it kind of surprised me, because whoever helped her with the video certainly knew a lot about symbolism. So anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and what the song actually is referring to. It's very relevant to today, actually. And it was 7 years ago, I think. So that was 2014. So, a lot of times these folks have foreknowledge of things, and she was involved in the legal system as well. You mentioned that this morning. So I guess if you want to mention what that was about, because I don't actually have a link on that. She was involved in a lawsuit with an artist, you said?
There is a Christian artist that goes by the name of Flame, and let me fix this screen. And he went into litigation with her for stealing his beat to a song that he had called Joyful Noise in 2008. And I kind of watched this go along. It took a few years, but he persevered and he won that lawsuit, which means his label, maybe not exact, and probably himself as well, receives earnings off of that song every time it's used.
Well, it has 3.1 billion views on YouTube, so he's probably doing pretty well. But and his song's really good, by the way. I did enjoy it earlier. It's got a lot of biblical references in it. But anyway, we'll get to that here later. And then there's something also, I think, X-Men related. Yeah, the Dark Phoenix. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. That's from the X-Men universe. Anyway, let me see if I can get the screen shared here. And we'll start on the October 9th. This is the 3rd of Chess Van 5782. One moment. That's the window. That should do the sound. Okay. All right, so just let me know when you can see the screen there, and I'll begin. Oh, you had some updates.
Oh, that was it. The update was on the sovereign
okay.
thing. Let me see if there was anything else that... Let me just check. I don't think there was anything else I said. I knew we would talk about Dr. Madej. I knew we were sharing links. Nope, I said I want to remember to talk about the sovereign man stuff, and that I found a great website. Oh, I guess I will mention one more thing, is that my daughter had her first swimming meet today, and she did so good. She was a little slow on the breaststroke, but that's a time to beat now. But she placed first on her backstroke, and she actually was first overall, even faster than the boys. And then on her front stroke, she was 1 second away from getting first place. So she killed it for her very first swim meet ever.
That's great. I'm glad that she has that talent. And if she invests it, well, who knows?
Yeah. Well, we'll see how far she goes with it.
My mother had to go to court recently. A state trooper gave her a ticket for crossing the white line or something, and then she had her seatbelt on, but improperly. I don't know why she does this, but she always takes it and moves it somehow when she puts it on around her shoulder. And so she got a ticket for that too. Well, she was really upset because she didn't have the extra money. Of course, I would have just given to her if she'd asked, but still, yeah, she said that when she walked into the bank to get the money to pay the fine the day of the court, she said something inside of her, she prayed, she said, and she said something inside of her told her not to even bother getting the money and to just go over there. And she said that they tried to charge her less, and then the person just looked at her and got up and then went and talked to the person, and somehow she just got it thrown out because she said she didn't think she deserved it. She wasn't guilty. Right. So it's kind of interesting where a lot of times they just try to use the law as a bludgeon against people to try and beat money out of them. That's
exactly what they're doing all the time. Not some of the time. They harass and collect. They don't serve and protect.
Yeah, so it kind of reminded me of like the bully at school that like shakes you upside down and gets your milk money out of your pockets and stuff. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. But it made me angry, of course, to hear all this. But it was really nice to have her share her testimony with me because, she told me she prayed. So a lot of times that I've prayed for folks involved in court issues, it seems to always work out for them. And so
great, pray for me all the way up to the 22nd of November, please.
So I think we should. And I ask for like a favorable outcome or something like that. I don't send the angel that can influence this court case, something like that's what I usually ask for. And it's always turned out, strangely enough, even when it probably shouldn't. But anyway, when's the date for that?
November 22nd.
Okay, thank you. And so it reminds me also of Zechariah 3, where there's a court case, and the 144,000 are on trial and such. So just imagine what would be the charges brought up against them now that we're seeing all these medical exemption things, religious exemptions, rather. The Pokemon jab and all that. And this type of stuff right here, travel's getting restricted as well. So maybe this argument could be made if you were trying to cross state lines and they started their nonsense, So it's interesting to see where this could be applicable. And if you kind of think about it, Zechariah 3 is almost like a class action lawsuit in a sense. It's very interesting to read. Oh, can you see the screen, by the way? The Shabbat.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Alrighty. So, like I said, it's the 3rd of Cheshvan, 5782. Have the Torah portions up here already. So we'll be reading from Genesis 6:9 and then Isaiah 54. And last week, it was like the very beginning, because remember, it said that the world was created in the month of September, basically, the latter part. So, so we'll be going back to that topic a little bit because of the symbolism found in the Dark Horse video. It is a big reference to the Ben stone, which was the mound of earth, like the earthen altar that was formed at the very beginning in Genesis, etc. So let's get to it, I guess, here. So Jewish history, passing of Ar Israel of Rusim, 1850. The 3rd of Cheshvan is the Yetzer Yarzeit, anniversary of the passing, and the famed Hasidic master rabbi Yisrael of Rusin, 1797, 1850, known as the Holy Rushiner. Rabbi Yisrael was a great-grandson of Rabbi Dovber of Messerich. These names. Close friendship existed between the Rebbe and the 3rd Chabad Rebbe. Just a little bit of history there. Daily study. We got a 7th portion here from Genesis 11. So I'll go ahead and share that, but we won't be reading that one today. And then also the Tehillim. We got lots of links today, so again, I'll just drop this one. Tehillim is supposed to be read every day. So you can visit this site anytime and just click on today. And you can get your Torah portions for that particular day, which is, again, mimics like creation began in September. So a lot of the things you'll be reading around then talk about that. And so as you go through the year, your verses will match up better in the Old Testament at least. So anyway, you can click right here on today and it'll bring you to the corresponding date. And let's see here. I don't really do these. These are other texts and rabbis and such. So I just focus on these two right here and these two right here. Okay, so I'm going to close these as we go to save RAM or some lamb. All right, so here's the first Torah portion. Oh, Shabbat Shalom, by the way. The parashat.
Shabbat Shalom back to you.
Yeah, I forgot to greet you. Okay, so Genesis chapter 6. We'll be covering Revelation 6 also, and that wasn't intentional, but a little bit of Alpha Omega vibes there. Okay, so chapter 6, verse 9. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man. He was perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. Verse 10, and Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Interestingly enough, when we say Baruch Hashem, that's bless the name. So Shem means name, but also fame. And he was the one to build the mound, I think, after the flood. Noah planted a vineyard. Shem created an earthen altar to thank God, right, for sparing them, etc. So he became the priestly line. Now the earth was corrupt before, verse 11. Now the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth became full of robbery. Verse 12, and God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted, for all flesh had corrupted its way on earth. So it's interesting that they use the robbery thing here, because we're told at the end will come as a thief in the night, right? Stealing peace from the earth, as it were. And God saw the earth, and behold, it had become corrupted, for all flesh had corrupted its way on the earth. So again, this is key, because the mark is forced upon all as well and corrupts all the flesh. And so we see that the judgment had been brought because of this corruption. And so we've talked about like fallen angels blending with man, etc., creating chimeras and the sort. Greek mythology is full of all kinds of examples. Personally, I think that a lot of those creatures did exist, and we see how a lot of them were killed off, and I'm sure a lot of them died in the flood as well. But anyway, they, the things that are stricken from the record would not be part of Shem or Fame. So if it's not in the blueprint, right, it's wiped out. And so that's kind of the point that's being driven home here, is that once everything had become corrupted, it had went its own way, instead of Yah's way, it was going its own way. And that's really the essence of the left-hand path, is that they don't want to follow the rules of Hashem. They would rather create their own laws, which, think of how many laws we have today, Aaron. I mean, is the world not full of man's law? I mean, most people probably don't even know the law's built upon the law of God and the Mosaic law, for instance, but so much has been added to it that if we just went back to the basics, we wouldn't really need all these laws today. That's just my opinion, but
most laws are unlawful, which means the law goes against our constitutional and God-given rights, and therefore we, according to the Supreme Court in many cases, can ignore with impunity. If we know them, if we know the laws and our rights.
It's like a scorpion that's stinging itself. And, it's become so ridiculous that it doesn't even work anymore. Okay, so verse 13 here, expands on this a little bit. And God said to Noah, quote, "The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth has become full of robbery because of them. And behold, I am destroying them from the earth." Okay, so remember also that one of the few times, or maybe the only time, that we see Christ in anger is when he's flipping the change tables, or the money changing tables rather, over in the temple. So again, he says to them that there are thieves and robbers in in the Lord's house of prayer, right? So we see that this type of thing right here, this usury, this robbery, is something that really brings the wrath of God. For instance, we don't even have the Shemitahs. Think how much easier your life would be if your debt was getting wiped every 7 years and things were getting truly reset. Your credit card or what have you was like, hey, you know what? We're just going to waive your payments for this whole year. Can you imagine? No interest payments this year.
It kind of works that way with some things. If you don't accrue more debt, the old debt does fall off after 7 years.
Okay, well, see, that's interesting where the law kind of mirrors the law, financial law rather, can sometimes mimic like the laws that we find written here. Okay, pardon me for getting off track there. Verse 14, "Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with compartments, and you shall caulk it both inside and outside with pitch." Verse 15, "And this you shall make it 300 cubits, the length of the ark, 50 cubits its breadth, and 30 cubits its height." That's basically like a soccer field and a half, or a football field and a half, I think. Long, anyway. "You shall make a skylight for the ark, and to a cubit you shall finish it at the top, and the entrance of the ark you shall place in its side, and you shall make it with bottom compartments, second story and third story. And behold, I am bringing the flood, water upon the earth, to destroy all flesh in which there is the spirit of life. From beneath the heavens, all that is upon the earth will perish." Oh, I just answered my own question. Today I was talking to somebody about, what it talks about in Acts, and I think maybe it was Luke, where the Spirit is poured out in those days. And of course, it's supposed to be a spirit of fire, right? Not water this time. And I was just wondering, what that really entailed, and if a vessel's corrupted, like it says up here, the reason for the judgment anyway is this corruption of the flesh, this spirit of robbery. Here he sends the water, the flood of water, to wipe out all those with the spirit of life. So when this happens again, but with fire, it's just interesting to think about the parallels here. What we have forgotten, but is still true, coming back full circle, because it is written. And I will set up, verse 18, and I will set up my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. He'll provide salvation to them and a promise. Remember, the rainbow is a symbol of this as well. And all of the living things of all flesh, 2 of each, you shall bring into the ark to preserve alive with you. They shall be male and female. Verse 20, of the fowl after its kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing upon the ground after its kind, 2 of each shall come to you to preserve alive. 2 of each shall come to you to preserve. It sounds like he just made them all come to him. Like he didn't even have to go get them.
Does sound like that.
It's pretty wild. So, imagine that's kind of like what's happening now. The gathering, the harpazo, it's those who have ears to hear. Think when it talks about, there was 2 in a bed and 1 goes, and 2 in a field and 1 goes, and that kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of that. It's like some will hear the call and they'll leave Babylon, so to speak, because of the coming destruction, right? So we'll go into the ark, which is really, in a sense, probably the sheepfold gate, because as we was describing the ark here, it says, you shall make a skylight for the ark. What does that mean? A hole in the top? Is that the way you interpret it?
Skylight for the ark? Well, yeah, I would assume that there'd be a hole with skylight to come in, yeah.
Okay, so that, it's kind of interesting. And so the sheepfold gate is also open on the roof. It's a structure made of stones with a gate, and it's open to the sky. So much like an ark, except it's not 2 and 3 stories. So I find the similarities there to be very interesting. Salvation within the sheepfold gate, salvation within the ark, covenant that is being made with these folks. So that, very interesting parallel to the remnant. Verse 21, and you take for yourself of every food that is eaten and gather it into you, and it shall be for you and for them to eat. And Noah did according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. Oh, an epiphany just hit me. I know why the animals come to him now. Okay, so there's a story after the flood where Ham steals Noah's garments. He plants the vineyard and gets drunk, and I finally figured out what the sin was, because it doesn't really make sense. It's like, it was kind of vague. Well, I think what it is, Noah had the garments that were made in the Garden of Eden and given to Adam and Eve. Can you remember what animal it was? Was it I'm not sure if it was a goat or
when they
rabbits
made
or something like that.
Or what?
Yeah, Hashem makes garments for Adam and Eve in the garden.
I feel like it's out of sheep.
Maybe it was. I just can't remember the animal. But anyway, those garments had the special ability of the animals would just come up to you. You didn't have you became like an expert hunter, because you literally didn't. The animals had no fear of you. So Noah was able to gather these animals because he had the clothing that Hashem had made for Adam and Eve. He was in possession of that. And so after the flood, Ham steals that from Noah. So I think that might have been kind of his sin right there. So I don't know. That's kind of an interesting thing, but I think you can read about that and maybe in the book of, maybe it's Yasher. I can't quite recall, but it's one of those apocryphal or extra biblical texts. Kind of goes into a little more detail. Verse 22, and Noah did according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. Just like it says in Zechariah 3, when he's talking to the high priest, he says, if you keep my commandments, you'll have a long rule. My kingdom will be established, etc. And of course, he's talking to Joshua, the high priest, whose name means salvation, which is what this ark represents as well. So we see an interesting pattern here, but with some minor differences, because again, there's water as compared to fire, for instance. So, okay. Oh yeah, and as far as the Spirit being poured out, I think we're in the time right now. Like this, again, that's why this site is so interesting, is because the flood would have occurred around this time of year. So when some people talk about, Judgment Day wasn't really last month, but it's coming up, for instance, well, they could have a point, because this is when that's kind of happening. So some people say that we're now in the Feast of Trumpets, which would mean that Yom Kippur is coming up. So Judgment Day, as it were, would be approaching, but that we've become so out of sync with, the observance of these times and holy days rather, that, our feast times are not actually in sync with Yahweh's feast times as in heaven, as it were. So, so inevitably we're going to be out of sync. So I guess that theory could be part of the reason why also it says, people like to say no man knows the day. So, but we still know the season. You would be you can tell when it's spring, when it's winter, when it's fall, when it's summer, but you may not know what day it is or what week it is, but you can still tell what season it is. So that's why it says maybe we don't know the day, but we should be able to read the signs, as it were, and know the season, that it won't come as a surprise. Again, a thief in the night. So another reference here to the robbery. And since I keep mentioning that, I want to go ahead and get out of the way maybe it's 1 John. Give me one moment. It's John 13, actually. Okay, so so Judas betrays Christ in the nighttime. And I found this very interesting because I was listening to that GZA fourth chamber song, the Wu-Tang song, and it talks about the 144,000 and the Lamb, and why did Judas rat to the Romans while Jesus slept? And I thought that was really interesting because, sorry, I have to cough. Give me a minute.
Yes, go ahead and cough.
I did. I was trying to hold it off, but I couldn't.
Been posting some of the sovereign stuff in the chat. If people find that interesting, join the Discord. There's lots more where that came from.
Yeah. So I want to read this real quick since it's a little relevant. Jesus predicts his betrayal. Let me drop that here. John 13:18 through 30. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but like the elect, right? Or the Lamb and the 144,000. It's just, you got 12. There's some interesting parallels here to think of. Okay, let me start over. I speak not of you all. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture may be fulfilled. He that eateth bread with me hath lifted up his heel against me. Now I tell you before it come, that when it come to pass, may believe that I am he. Which hey is also the H, or the door, or the window, that the anoint with the Lamb's blood. Another interesting parallel. Verse 20, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that receiveth whomsoever I send receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. So again, remember when Peter was ever able to recognize who had sent him, the Father sent him. When the others were just speculating, like, well, some say you're this, some say you're that. And he's like, well, what do you think? He's like, well, I think you're the Son of God. And he's like, well, and don't tell anybody. And then, so he was referring to the Petrus, the rock. He said he would build his church on that, and that the gates of hell would not prevail. That was we did that lecture last week. Which, by the way, for those that don't know, if they weren't there last week, there is a display of Dante's Inferno, Gate to Hell, throughout this month. I think, was it in Italy?
Are you asking me a question? Because I was just out of range, and I apologize.
It's fine. Was that Gates of Hell in Italy this month?
Yes, I do believe it was.
Yeah. And we do have a story about Pelosi meeting with the Pope, so we can maybe talk about that a little bit in a minute. Okay, verse 21. When Jesus had thus said, he was troubled in spirit and testified and said, verily, verily, I say unto you, that one of you shall betray me. Then the disciples looked one on another, doubting of whom he spake. Now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. Simon Peter therefore beckoned to him that he should ask who it should be of whom he spake. He then lying on Jesus' breast, which, by the way, I would be interested to know if it was the right or the left, because the right's the portion that was given to the priests, like the Levite priests. They were given the first fruits, would be like the right breast. So, again, like a reference to Abraham's bosom, for instance. Excuse me. Which represents also the harpazo, being drawn into the right breast with the strong right arm. Pardon, I keep interrupting the verse. He then, lying on Jesus' breast, said unto him, Lord, who is it? Verse 26, Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop when I have dipped it. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop, Satan entered unto him. And that's really interesting. Let's read that again. Jesus answered, He it is to whom I shall give a sop. What's a sop, Aaron? Do you know?
I can look it up.
When I have dipped it, baptized it, perhaps. And when he had dipped the sop, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And after the sop...
It's a little bit or a morsel.
Like a piece of bread, maybe, huh?
Yeah, it just says like a piece of bread. That's exactly what it says. A piece of bread dipped in the common dish as a sort of improvised spoon, a.k.a. morsel.
Interesting. I wonder if he dipped it in milk or water. Okay, and after the sop, Satan entered into him. Then said Jesus unto him, that thou doest, do quickly. Now no man at the table knew for what intent he spake this unto him. For some of them thought, because Judas had the bag, that Jesus had said unto him, buy those things that we need of against the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. He then, having received the sop, went immediately out, and it was night. So he was chosen, and he already knew. And so when it says, thief, it's a thief in the night, right? Well, it's kind of like this right here, where it was nighttime when this was all going down, all the plotting. And, in my opinion, this is kind of where the phrase comes from. There's no rest for the wicked. Because here, while these others are sleeping, the righteous ones are sleeping. We got the wicked out doing their plotting and their wickedness. And so there's no rest. There's no Sabbath. There's no salvation or rest given to those that are wicked. Those actively working against the kingdom of God, as it were. Right? Really interesting. So I just wanted to read that because that's like a fruit, as it were. Somebody that doesn't have rest. No, there's no peace in them or no truth in them. Some of those fruits are things to just reflect on, I guess. Anyway, just wanted to hop onto that since it was somewhat relevant, because that song really made me think about it. Why did Judas go while they all slept, right? It's just, there's no rest for the wicked. Oh, and then if you hang from a tree, you're cursed. I've read that as well. So, of course, Christ was crucified on a tree as well. So when he bore the sins, but Judas hung from one as well. And if you recall, they had to take Christ down off the cross because it was the Sabbath was coming up, right? And they couldn't have dead bodies on the cross. So that's why they would break the shins to speed up death, but he had been given a quick death. And so his shins were not broken. Shin refers to the teeth or Holy Spirit. And so I just found that interesting. And then whether it's the right or the left, it would have it would just be S and be sin, or it would be the right with an H and be shin. So it's like you got sin on one hand, like the condemnation of the law, but then the right, the harpazo, the redemption quality, which seems to be related to the H, or the number 8, I guess, since it's the 8th letter. But
I wanted to read a comment from the Bubba News
the door.
real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
He says, I found it interesting that the Galilean wedding was the only area in the entire region that did the wedding in the middle of the night, and it was a secret until the father said, go get your bride. And we have talked about that. So
Yeah, I forgot it was at nighttime, though. So that's,
oh, you did? But what about the lanterns and their oil and all that? How could you forget?
I know. I mean, I just forgot. So it's nice to be reminded of things like that. So thief in the night to go steal the bride, in a sense, kind of thing. Sleeping Beauty-esque kind of vibes. Yeah, so he would say, go get the bride. It happened at nights. Interesting. Yeah, so I always have to have enough oil in the lamp. I just got a lamp that takes oil, by the way. It has a wick. Had to get a funnel to put the oil in it, though, but made me think of that. This is Isaiah 54. This is the other Torah portion. I think that lantern's like a storm lantern or something like that. For the dark winter. But let's continue here. Isaiah 54, verse 1, quote, sing you barren woman who has not borne, burst out into song and jubilate. You have not experienced birth pangs, for the children of the desolate one are more than the children of the married woman, says the Lord. There are more. That's interesting. So like legion, there are many perhaps. Also this birth pangs, you who have not experienced birth pangs. That word is Odin in Hebrew, travail. You can also refer to the sign in Revelation 12, the sign in the sky that occurred 9/23/2017, another reference to that kind of birthing. Verse 2, widen the place of your tent and let them stretch forth the curtains of your habitations. Do not spare, lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. I didn't have time to get it, but there's a song of Deborah, and it talks about Jael, I think a woman named Jael, who drives a tent peg to this guy's head. With it's a peg and a hammer that she uses, and it reminded me of the deadly head wound that the beast receives in Revelation. So I'd like to maybe touch on that sometime, because after learning the significance of the Sukkot and the tent, it's as if the tent peg, right, like the foundation of it, is what destroys this tyrant, right? So I just thought that was really interesting. Verse 3, for right and left shall you prevail, and your seed shall inherit nations and repeople desolate cities. That's very interesting, a repopulation of sorts. Fear not, for you shall not be ashamed, and be not embarrassed, for you shall not be put to shame. For the shame of your youth you shall forget, and the disgrace of your widowhood you shall no longer remember. Shame is like the opposite of fame, or like the fame of Shem. Shame is kind of like the thing that goes along with Hasatan, right? It's like the opposite, right? Infamy, if you will. Verse 5, for your master is your maker, the Lord of hosts is his name, and your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, shall be called the God of all the earth. Remember, the hosts are like his armies, but we can also be hosts for spirits because we are the temple, right? So we got to bear in mind that. And others can be hosts for things as well, which we'll talk about the potential for that later. What's her name again? Dr. what?
Madej.
Madej. Yes. Verse 6, for like a wife who is deserted and distressed in spirit has the Lord called you, and a wife of one's youth who has rejected, said your God. Verse 7, for a small moment I have forsaken you, and with great mercy I will gather you. That's the harpazo element. Again, Hosea 4:6 talks about the ignorance is why the people die, and if we forget the Lord and his ways, he'll forget us. So that's kind of like an interesting reference to that, perhaps. But for his glory and his sake, he saves us, because otherwise there's nobody to give him glory and add to his name, the glory of his name, testify. So he doesn't save us because we deserve it. He saves us so that we can praise him, continue the story, if you will, because then our names are added to the book, while the others have theirs blotted out and stricken from it. So those who get their name added, they're in attendance at that Galilean wedding, right? So they like sign the guest book, if you will. Verse 9 here, for this is to me the waters of Noah, as I swore that the waters of Noah shall never again pass over the earth, so have I sworn neither to be wroth with you nor to rebuke you. Rebuke is that same word that's found in Zechariah 3, when the angel of the Lord rebukes Hasatan, Satan, and then they're cast out. So then we see a correlation there with being thrown out of the courtroom, and then the stars fall to earth, right? So all the angels that are persecuting us, prosecuting us with the law, if you will, they're cast down in that manner. So we see the wrath is kind of tied to this, because once an edict leaves the mouth of the Lord, it is done, right? So when he uses his words to do that, it starts action. Verse 10, for the mountains shall depart and the hills totter, but my kindness shall not depart from you, neither shall the covenant of my peace totter, says the Lord, who has compassion on you. So that's why it's so interesting to see the Abraham Accords, for instance, taking place. They're trying to fashion their own peace, right, and their own order, and forgetting the covenant that had already been made and the promises that have been made as well. So it's like they're ignoring all of the warnings and doing their own thing now. And so it kind of relates this straight to being rebuked and wrath. But he says he won't use water. He didn't say he wasn't going to destroy the earth again. He just said he wasn't going to use water the next time.
Right, it will be fire.
But we see a lot of these same themes going along with it, though. Okay, so that's the Torah portion here. This is time and date calendar, and I like to feature Jerusalem so that we can take a look at the, I have to sorry, I guess I didn't have to reload it. Okay, good. All right, so this is the night sky over Jerusalem. I guess I don't have to reload after all. I guess I can still show it. Yep. All right. Looks like it's working now. It's loading the positions, however. So flat Earth or not, this is just how it looks over Israel. the land anyway. So you can't see Mercury or Mars, but all the others are visible, so it gives you rising and setting times here. And you can, of course, watch the video animation as depicting how they move. And some folks are pointing out some interesting things, like in the last day or two, the moon has been at the feet of Virgo. Of course, the sun was in Virgo, and they're seeing some of the same alignments that we saw in 2017. But of course, a lot of those do happen all the time on regular schedules. It's just for all of them to happen at once. So we didn't have the crown of 12 stars, and we didn't have Jupiter within Virgo for 4.5 months, and then another 4.5 months retrograde, which would total to 9. So we didn't have those to correlate with it. But we are halfway through the tribulation in a sense, if you use that as the starting date. So to have that kind of pattern reemerging is interesting to me. But we also see another mention of a flood and a dragon in Revelation. So even though the earth isn't going to be destroyed with a flood again, there is this mentioning of a flood in Revelation, and it does pursue the elect, as it were, or the bride of Christ, if you will. So those who are to be heirs to the kingdom. So you can view the flood maybe as a symbolic thing, just persecution of the dragon in general, flooding the earth. Of course, how can you escape a flood? Well, not very easily, right? You got to go to the high mountains. So we do see in Revelation 8, the elect are gathered with the Lamb, and they're a mountain atop singing Song of Salvation. And so they'll be a part of that new covenant that's made as the fiery destruction is taking place and Babylon's being destroyed. Maybe we'll get another rainbow or some type of thing. Probably get another type of token to remind us of the sparing that we go through in that process. Okay, so Pelosi meets Pope as abortion debate rages back home. So what could be what could they possibly have in common? This guy, however, is promoting.
Could it be Satan?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was just being rhetorical, but you're right. They got the same father. So anyway, he's promoting the Pokemon. I saw a pretty funny meme. I can't remember what this is called, but the shawl piece of his garment was flying up around his face. It was like comparing him to the lizard from Jurassic Park. He did said he could spit holy venom or something like that. But of course it would be unholy venom. And we know the word for venom is virus also. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. But let's read this here. So Pope Francis met on Saturday with U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She's a speaker. And she's, yes, a Catholic who has come under criticism from some bishops in the United States for her support for abortion rights. Their meeting took place several weeks before Joe Biden is expected to meet the Pope while the U.S. president is in Rome for talks between leaders of the group of 20 major economies. Well, I didn't even know this was going on. So while the gates of hell are on display in Italy, the U.S. president, Nancy Pelosi, and the gang, and the 20 most economically developed countries on earth and their leaders, hey, all gathering around the gates of hell. What do you know? So you can't make this stuff up. It's so ridiculous. So Biden, the second Catholic U.S. president, has said, well, that would mean JFK and him were like the only two, I guess, in recent memory. Biden, the second Catholic U.S. president, has said he is personally opposed to abortion, but as a politician cannot impose his views. Isn't the whole purpose of electing somebody for them to have views? Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand if it might seem unethical, but it's like,
which is why they
there's
do
no
the
point in you
501
being Catholic. You're not Catholic.
Which is why they do the 501c3 for churches, because they don't want churches to get behind any politician. But then the politicians won't push for or against these kinds of subjects anyway, so who's going to? Well, they've decided to make it political to talk about abortion, so even the churches aren't supposed to talk about that. If you're a 501c3, you are owned by the government.
Wow, that's scary stuff. And remember, those religious exemptions are risky business, folks, because you got to check out your pastor, check his fruit, if you will. You know, have a personal conversation with them, perhaps. Like, hey, what's going on here, you know? I have heard about some pastors and even like Jewish rabbis that have been extending religious exemptions to folks. So, you know, look into these folks, see if they have a track record or not, I guess, if you want to go that route. But the risky business is, like, I heard that the Mormon, the Latter-day Saints leader was promoting the Pokemon, rather. And
so is Greg Laurie.
Yeah. So if you went for an exemption with the denomination that these people are speakers for, then and remember, the Pope, they issued papal bulls, so he too they fancy themselves as a speaker for the Holy See. Remember, there's a beast from the sea we should be mindful of. So these speakers, these talking heads, remember the beasts in Revelation all are like heads. Anyway, very suspect. Biden administration and Pelosi have urged judges to block a new Texas law which bars abortions from 6 weeks, saying it's unconstitutional. The ban was temporarily reinstated on Friday by a conservative-leaning appeals court. The Catholic Church teaches that human life begins at the moment of conception, and Biden and Pelosi have been criticized by conservative Catholic media and U.S. conservative bishops, some of whom say neither should be allowed to receive communion. How ironic. Okay, so
they can't receive their witchcraft transubstantiation. I mean, it's all witchcraft anyway. I mean, it's
interesting
keeping them
that
from their dark and demonic pleasures somehow.
While they're trying to give us their unholy communion at the same time in the Pokemon, it's just a strange.
This is an equally unholy communion.
Last month, the Pope asked about the U.S. communion debate, told reporters abortion is murder, and even soon after conception, and appeared to criticize U.S. Catholic bishops for dealing with the issue in a political rather than pastoral way. Communion is not a prize for the perfect. Communion is a gift, the presence of Jesus and his church, the Pope said. In June, a divided conference of U.S. Roman Catholic bishops voted to draft a statement on communion that some bishops say should specifically admonish Catholic politicians, including Biden. They take up the issue again next month. In a statement, Pelosi said the audience with the Pope was, quote, spiritual, personal, and an official honor. She praised his defense of the environment, immigrants, refugees, and the poor. Well, that all sounds great, but we know that that's not what they really are doing. That's green agenda and carbon tax, which I've read now that I can't remember what the number was exactly. It was a surprising number, though. Might have been over 100 or close to it. Countries had voted for in favor of a global tax. So you know they're moving in this direction of a carbon tax, which will tie to your social credit and so on and so forth. So the bullying will intensify. I mean, Biden's even trying to justify this provision in the legislation about firing people for the mandated Pokemon. So yeah, it's absurd. All right, so the Vatican announced Pelosi's audience with the Pope in its daily bulletin, but gave no details after Pelosi met former Pope Benedict in 2009. The Vatican said he had told her that legislators and other public figures should help create, quote, a just system of laws capable of protecting human life at all stages of its development. Wasn't Benedict a Nazi, by the way? So to hear him say that's kind of
Probably.
ironic. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, Mr. Benedict. I'm thinking of Ratzinger.
That's the same one.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Archbishop.
Pope Benedict is the Ratzinger guy.
I'm not so sure. That's the
Because
guy.
Ratzinger was his name before he became Pope.
Oh, okay. Well, he was the one that looked like
Pope Benedict the 16th was
Okay.
Ratzinger. Same guy.
All right. Because I just knew it was the one that looked like the Sith Lord.
That's the same guy, yes.
Yeah. The Archbishop in Pelosi's home city of San Francisco, Salvatore Cordileone, has said public figures who support abortion should be denied communion in his archdiocese and has urged Catholics to pray for Pelosi's, quote, conversion of heart. I even heard her say it was going to be a devil of a day the other day.
Yes, they love to say things like that. I'll fight like the devil. What? How dare you call me at this devil of an hour? And stuff like just weird stuff.
Yeah, they purposefully use it, I think. Cardinal Wilton Gregory, the Archbishop of Washington, D.C., has not tried to stop Biden, a regular churchgoer, from receiving communion. Biden's meeting with the Pope will be the first since his election, although they have met several times before, including when he was vice president to Barack Obama. Pelosi is in Rome for a parliamentary speakers summit ahead of the G20, as well as the meeting of parliamentary leaders before the UN Climate Change Summit next month in Glasgow. Francis told the parliamentarians separately on Saturday that they had a decisive role to play in protecting the environment. The Vatican announced on Friday that the Pope would not be going to Glasgow, but that its delegation would be headed by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State. Pietro. I think that means Peter, Cardinal Peter. This stuff maybe this is not a perfect fulfillment of prophecy, but it just gets kind of suspicious when you got the gates of hell hanging out in Italy. And what do you know? You got the heads of all these countries meeting there. The Pope. It's just, they're talking about a global tax. What if they were to give all their authority to, one country or something like that, name a climate czar or something like that, and they handle the global tax, stuff like that. That's going to start to look a lot like we're going in that direction, Interesting. A lot of times we see through a glass darkly, right? We don't know until it happens, or maybe looking back that it had occurred. So sometimes it's kind of hard to notice the stuff unless you have the eyes to see, I guess. All right, here's an NPR article, which, by the way, I don't like NPR, but they had this story. And, of course, it's part of their Goats and Soda, stories of life in a changing world. Couldn't you think of something different than Goats and Soda?
I don't know how those two things even go together in the first place, and
Yeah,
how they
it's like
are attributed to stories of life in a changing world.
It has to be on purpose, Aaron. So,
of course.
Anyway, new studies find evidence of superhuman immunity to the wild Pokemon in some individuals. Let's continue reading here. Some scientists have called it, quote, superhuman immunity, or, quote, bulletproof, shot-proof. But immunologist Shane Crotty prefers hybrid immunity. Overall, hybrid immunity to SARS-CoV-2, aka the wild Pokemon, rather, appears to be impressively potent. Oh yeah, by the way, the Project Veritas dropping some bombs. There's the FDA guy talking about using blowguns, which of course sounds absurd, but he used that particular word and phrase probably 15, 20 times in the entire video. So as absurd as it sounds, like he was just advocating like the random inoculation of the Pokemon and being forced on people and using drones and blow guns and stuff. So this is obviously absurd. But to hear the person that is in charge of making policy making comments like that on hidden camera, and then of course they've had a whistleblower within, maybe was it Pfizer? The lady had been working there for like 10 years.
They had whistleblowers from Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and I think Moderna, all of them.
She was talking about how they were blacking out the windows and weren't letting people see what was going on, and it started making her very uncomfortable. And she said that, you know, part of the integrity of the whole operation was that you could just look in through the windows at any time and see what was going on. She was part of quality control, for instance. So, you know, to her, these were red flags, and so that's why she came out and talked, it says. So, you know, we really don't know what's going on, because remember, Operation Warp Speed removed the liability from these manufacturers, so it gave them the legal justification to be doing the things they're doing, like where they don't have to put ingredients in the box, so you really don't know what's in it. So they could say, you know, these fact checkers like to pretend they know, but the fact of the matter is it's treated as a proprietary ingredients, so or what McDonald's might refer to as a secret sauce. So as such, it's not listed, and so you can't even read about it. So you got to remember that there are a lot of secretive practices going on, and if it's so good for you, why would they need to hide anything? You know, that's kind of my feeling on the matter. But anyway, the article goes on to talk about the differences in the immunity and how they're trying to say it's superhuman. There's some studies coming out of Israel as well discussing the exponential effectiveness of natural immunity versus inoculations. I've even seen some stories that it's giving people only up to 2 months, things of that nature. So it's like, is it like planned obsolescence, like an iPhone or something? Like, you know, it works, but only for a month. And, you know, it's just how many Pokemons are you going to have to collect? You gotta catch them all, apparently. So
I want to speak on this article when you're
please.
done.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm already finished. I didn't want to like read the whole thing. I just wanted to touch on the topic and share it with folks because it relates to a theme.
Yeah, and I wanted to read this, which will come back to Dr. Madej when we talk about her tonight, that this is not something that people haven't been already looking at. I have it only because I look to people like Nicholson 1968 and Anthony Patch, but who've been doing this for years. But what I say is there was going to become a time where I said to my mom sitting at the table, I said, Mom, what would be a reason that everyone would run for a vaccine? This was before COVID hit. I said, what would be the reason that everybody would want one? Well, promises of cures, promises of eternal life, promises of enlightenment, which is what Orm Gold already does by itself. But Dr. Anthony Patch talks about, and by the way, Dr. Anthony Patch doesn't ask anybody to call him doctor. So I don't even need to, unlike Dr. Madej, who is not practicing anymore but still wants to be called doctor. But that this black gold would actually be gold, a third strand DNA laid down with gold with a vaccine. That would be programmable DNA bound to gold that when introduced to the body will lay down a third programmable DNA strand. We will be cured of ailments and live forever. And I don't mean you and me, right? But at the price of becoming a host body to demonic possession, and our names will be erased from the book of life if we accept this. Do not comply, and that means starting now. And I know that's what the videos for music videos try to show you. Oh, super powers! You can have these superhuman flying, you know, or your favorite superhero, and that's exactly what this is. This is called soft disclosure. They're giving us the truth softly, not hard in your face. This is soft disclosure. The article that you're showing. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, by the way, you said a word that kind of triggered me there. I was reading the Bible a couple of nights ago, and I come across the word matrix in it, and it just kind of threw me for a loop. Here's matrix in the Bible. Here's a link that might have some of them. I don't remember. I think it was in Numbers. So yeah, let me type that in real quick on this other screen. See if I can do it real quick. Numbers 22:5, maybe. Anyway, I'm sorry I didn't have it up in front of me, but there's a part in, I think it's Numbers, where it talks about the matrix, and the way it was explained, it was talking about, I think it was talking about like spiritual captivity and stuff. And I thought, wow, that is literally exactly like what the Matrix movie is kind of about, you know? So it was almost as if it kind of was proving it in a sense. I don't know. It was just a wild experience to be reading that, because I wasn't expecting to see it. Just one of those times where I opened up the Bible randomly, and you know, there was this very profound verse that it revealed to me. But yeah, here's the superhero vaccine. So we have superhero immunity. There was a superhero vaccine based on the Olympic athlete DNA that could provide body-wide genetic upgrades, which, remember how they said, well, the traditional Pokemon is supposed to remain in your arm, an anchor to the site. And it's almost like, I don't know, imagine if they just like implanted a pill into your arm surgically, and it just stayed there and released its medicine from that point, or whatever. So it was only active there, right? Well, the Pokemon actually moves throughout your entire body. That's why people are, you know, having hair loss, like the follicles are not getting blood flow because they're getting full of spike proteins. The heart is getting interfered with because of all the capillaries, and the lungs and the heart are getting filled with the spike proteins. Remember, again, in Matthew 7:16, I think it is, it talks about you do not gather grapes from thorns or figs from thistles. You know, these people that are becoming trees that are producing spikes, you know, fruitless type. They're turning themselves like into fruitless trees, as it were. And of course, those trees get hewn down, right, at the time of the harvest, time of the judgment, which the trees also cut down, like in Daniel 4. You see this big judgment that occurs there. So these men of renown, this type of phenomena here of superheroism, this X-Men type element. We see them promote the Avengers, what we got, the DC universe, we got Marvel. I mean, there's probably a whole
Hail
host.
Hydra comes from Marvel.
Oh yeah, see, there we go. So you're even talking about that. What was Hydra? Was that like a...
Hydra's a group, but Venom is part of it. It was
so it's like a villain group.
I don't know exactly, but if you look up, I pulled it up when I was showing everybody the other day with quote unquote Dr. Madej, but there's a comic series called Hail Hydra, and it gets into, I think, more than one. It's not just Venom, but Venom's certainly a big part of it.
Something about having 3 strands of DNA here. That's interesting.
What's that?
Relates.
In the
Doc
article
Michaels
that you're
posted
reading?
something up here. No, up here he mentioned something about 3 strands of DNA. It reminded me of the black gold thing, the RM gold strain you talk about.
Right.
So maybe that's what they're trying to achieve here, some type of augmentation. I'm not really sure, but I mean, one could speculate. And I mean, I wish it was science fiction, but it's not. I mean, this is the words they're using. So, but anyway, she does explain in her terms about how it looks like a matrix. And so, like, that's why when I was reading in the Bible, it really jumped out at me. Not like it did off the slide for her. Yeah, but
yes,
like,
and it was self-aware. I mean. She felt like it was self-aware.
Yeah, I'll admit she could have definitely phrased things differently, but she did mention how she was going to live stream it or whatever, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I did see one post somebody had on the Instagram about how they had taken a foot bath and things like that
Well,
were
David
coming out in
Beverly did the same thing from Jesus Free Computer Geek, and we agreed that it's not that these things don't exist. And if you want to talk about it now, we can. It's not that they
Yeah,
don't
please, because I
exist.
don't know what you're
She's just
talking about.
behind the times, acting like what she is doing is setting brush fires of misinformation to people who have no idea what is going on. They've never heard of Morgellons. They don't realize Lyme is related, or even syphilis for that matter. They don't understand these long hauler things that even like COVID people are talking about. Already started with those. She's making it seem like this is something new, freaking everybody out, pulling up Hail Hydra because somebody emailed her about it, instead of doing any kind of. She's a doctor. If she's going to look into slides, she should research what it is she's finding instead of coming on and going, it looked like something that's self-aware. I felt like it was looking at us and knowing that we were looking at it. I thought that these things looked like superconductors, tiny computers. They created, colors that I feel like it could have been that. Nothing substantial whatsoever, but because she wears a white coat, suddenly she is, and because she appeals to the right, everybody takes her pictures and runs with it like wildfire. It is
What did you
absolutely
call
insane.
that? White coat syndrome?
Yeah, as I said, that's the new white coat syndrome. The old one was when you got scared when they walked in the room, and rightfully so, because they're not your friend. Did you see what I sent you about the Hippocratic Oath?
I'm not certain. I must have overlooked it.
Let me pull this up. The
But I'll
Hippocratic.
read. I mean,
Well,
go
real
ahead. I
quick, let
didn't
me.
realize you had it already.
Yep. Did you know that when doctors take their Hippocratic Oath, they swear to the gods, Apollyon and others, and is not
Oh,
our Father, obviously. So it says, I swear by Apollo healer, by Asclepius, by Hygeia, by Panacea, and by all the gods and goddesses, making them my witnesses, that I will carry out, according to my ability and judgment, this oath and this indenture, to hold my teacher in this art equal to my own parents, to make him partner in my livelihood when he is in need of money, to share mine with him, and blah, 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 blah. And anyone can read that. I'll post it in the Discord regularly. In the regular Discord, I had originally posted it in just a private conversation between you and me. But the concern here is that no doctor has your best interest in mind. So she is still calling herself doctor and apparently not practicing, supposedly getting vials, looking at things with colleagues and not naming who they are, and coming out and just saying, well, I got an email that somebody says it's this Hydra vulgaris, so that's what it must be. And if you put Hydra vulgaris in a blender, it'll become a billion Hydra vulgarises, when in fact it has to be large enough. It has to be cut large enough before it will regenerate like a starfish. So these aren't new creatures. They're not new, and neither is Morgellons, and neither is Lyme, and neither is syphilis. And yet she's jumping on the scene, making these people lose their ever-loving minds and share it like crazy. You know what that is? That's COINTELPRO. And COINTELPRO is created to infiltrate and discredit. So back to you. Or did I lose you?
I'm sorry. I didn't realize I'd muted myself. So that'd be kind of like the January 6th event, wouldn't you agree?
Well, yeah, but this is even worse because...
Like with the buffalo horn guy?
Well, yeah, that's a more obvious one. She's far less obvious. In fact, this is like kicking a hornet's nest for a lot of people, because Canary Cry News Talk tries to talk about it, and apparently they have so many listeners, it angered a bunch of people. I only angered a couple. Somebody today says, why are you even on YouTube anymore? I guess because here's the thing, is people on the right also agree with cancel culture and think that if what I put on the internet is not to their liking, I should be taken down. This person asked twice, why are you on YouTube? Well, I don't know, because I have time and I have a channel. Do you want me to be canceled? Do you want me to be censored because you don't agree with my standpoint? That's where we are. Both sides are so bonkers that you can't say anything. Or you are. In fact, I knew they were going to do this. Somebody said Aaron must have gotten the jab. I knew they were going to say that. Yes, I'm so pro jab because I don't like what she's doing. What she's not wrong about is there are little creatures in this stuff, but it doesn't matter because they've been around. They're in the air. They're in our food. They're in the chemtrails. There's nothing new under the sun when it comes to this brush fire misinformation she's happily spreading. And great, I hope she does something live, but it's still not going to make any difference because we already know about these things. She's just late to the game, and that's fine. But what she's not doing is handling it well and showing people well. Instead, she's like,
Yeah, I
oh
see
my
what
gosh,
you
what
mean.
is this? Oh, it's the Hail Hydra. Oh my gosh, it's immortal. Oh my gosh, it's transhumanism. Buzzword, buzzword, buzzword. Without
Is that what
explaining anything.
gaslighting is?
Pretty
I didn't
much.
see if you had answered me, or because I never really understood what that phrase means. But I just like, was that like when your gas light comes on in your car and you start panicking and need to like look for a gas station? I don't know what it means. So like, I was wondering, like, is like, what's the phrase you use?
Gaslighting
Hydra
is what the government does to
doom or
us. It's a
something?
form of psychological abuse where a person or group makes someone question their sanity, perception of reality, or memories. So it's not
Okay.
it's not exactly gaslighting. I think it's more COINTELPRO, where she is infiltrating a somewhat organized community of people and discrediting them. How will she discredit us? Because they're jumping on it like wildfire. They don't even care what information she admits. All it takes is looking through these. I couldn't get them to play, but when you play this, she says such key things as I feel like, it looked like, and then I don't know what it is. Then she goes on to this one. That's another 15 minutes of garbage. I mean, it's almost intolerable. It's almost intolerable. She looks up and to the right constantly. She laughs about her comments. Yes, it did seem to climb up and look at me. I would be dead serious talking about this. I would be so
Oh yeah,
interested in
absolutely. I mean,
warning
it's
people.
life and death.
But she's laughing about it. It's, like I said, almost impossible to watch. And as she goes on, oh, by the way, you can buy these products from Dr. So-and-so. We've got diatomaceous earth, and we've got special straw baths for you, and we've got our colloidal silver. Just, pay whatever. It's
Oh,
just,
I see. It was almost like a commercial
this one was, but
in a sense.
there was so much to it. And then this doctor says, well, shouldn't people be... if this was really science, shouldn't people be reproducing this? And they're all like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, so do it. If you got one vial, get another one. By the way, I know a microscope can have a micro video recorder. So record it. Don't just come on with a flash picture. And then she says, well, I didn't know what it was, but I got all these emails from people about Hail Hydra and Hydra vulgaris. She says this, that she's going on what people emailed her. It's almost intolerable to watch, but people are jumping on it with a fervor that is beyond my understanding. So all I'm trying to do is explain why we shouldn't. Yes, Morgellons is real. Yes, an updated, upgraded version is coming. Yes, transhumanism is their plan. Yes, the jab is bad. She is not the one to give you the proper information, though.
So I see what you mean. Like it's like a, I guess you could kind of say it's like a false shepherd. Like for any of the quote unquote sheep that would be hip to this stuff, here we get this wolf in sheep's clothing, so to speak, to be like, hey, here's what's really going on with this. And she seems credible because she's got the white coat, like sheep's wool, right? So yeah,
and by the way, who's the most indoctrinated?
Point.
Doctors.
Indoctrinated, yeah. That's well, they're even the Hippocratic Oaths, like a doctrine of sorts.
An
and
oath that we're not supposed to even be taking.
Yeah, because that makes them like allegiant to the medical industrial complex. I guess we can call it that now, like the military industrial complex. And of course, it's like their religion of science essentially. So yeah, you can't serve two masters. I wanted to read this. This here says Professor Ashley says ongoing advances in the genome editing tool CRISPR clustered regularly. Oh, okay, this is what CRISPR means. I've never really heard it spelled out. Clustered regularly, interspaced, short, palindromic repeats. A palindrome is a word like
Mom,
Anna.
Wow, Dad.
Yeah, Anna.
Oh wait, or is palindromes the one that go forward, backward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hannah. Here's
Yeah,
another.
Mom, Dad. Wow.
NASCAR is one also, I think, or race car rather. Race car. There we go. And also rats live on no evil star. My friend taught me that one. That's a really long one. It's probably the longest one I know. But anyway, palindromes refer to that kind of thing. So you imagine these gene repeats, like that would, when you saw one of these chemically, that would be the message to stop, start, cut, recombine, so on and so forth. So these are like commands. So it wouldn't do anything unless it got this like repeat palindrome, I guess. So that's kind of what it's talking about here. Or other words, stop, 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 go, go, go. You know, it says that these will lead to, quote, very significant developments in the treatment of serious disease within the next decade. They are already considered to be easier and cheaper to make at scale. Of course, that's the important thing here, right? That it suits the capitalist agenda. Gene editing is now coming of age, bringing with it the exciting possibility of preventing serious diseases in the population before they develop. Did you say it was your mom? You asked your mom what it would be that trigger?
Yeah, because she's a nurse and I was a PA and my sister's a doctor, and I was just sitting there, you know, with another educated person in the medical field, and I'm like, what would make people run for these poisonous jabs?
Yeah. And of course, the Pokemon is supposed to be touting its ability to, and of course, we know in truth, it doesn't even prevent the infection from wild Pokemon. It just lessens the symptoms or something. So, I mean, it really should just be a personal choice. It makes no sense why they're forcing it on everybody unless there's some nefarious agenda afoot, which, you know, is as weird and quirky as the Madej stuff might be. Like you said, there's some truth in it. I really wouldn't put it past them to put creatures of some sort in there. I mean,
they've been doing it. It's in our food, and it's in the sky, and it's in everything we already deal with. That's what Morgellons is.
Yeah.
Morgellons is a fungal type creature, or is it a parasite? And it can grow these polymer fibers.
Antennas.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen videos where they'll react to certain RF radio frequencies, you know, which interestingly enough, RF, that is the letter, that's the 18th letter, which is 6 plus 6 plus 6. And of course, F also equals 6. And then where I had that epiphany was I've never seen The Dark Tower, but there's a guy in that called the Man in Black, but they also call him Randall Flagg. And I thought, well, wait, that's the guy from The Stand. You know, the vessel for the devil's spirit in The Stand is named Randall Flagg, which then I realized, I was like, oh, Randall Flagg, that's 18-6. So which is 3 6s and then 6. And of course, the F, I think, refers to the F scale, which is the authoritarian scale, the fascist scale. Like a tyrant is measured, their intensity of a tyrant is measured by the F scale, which does appear in the iPet Goat 2 video on the blackboard, or below the blackboard rather. It's got the F equals F, but with like a vector. So I think it's a reference to the tyrant scale. Oh, and by the way, in that scene, there's a teleprompter in front of the Obama-looking character, and it has LOL on it, and so he's like cued to laugh. Just find that all very fascinating. Anyway, did you have anything to add before I read the rest of this?
No, I would just say this is something that's certainly nothing new. I was going to do a thesis on what is called gene doping, which is the same thing. You introduce genetic material in a hollowed out virus shell into people's bodies to go in and implement genes on DNA into their genes to make them more superhuman, to give them more strength or more longevity in their running, or more strength in lifting.
Yeah, China. Rats. Did you say that was China?
No, or? I was going to do a thesis on this in my my mid-20s for my master's as a PA in medicine.
They're doing this in China with the military. They're doing it now.
I know they are. That's why I'm saying this is nothing new, because when I was in PA school, that was 2005 to 2007, and that's the thesis I almost wrote. but I changed it because there just wasn't enough information on it.
Seems like they're slowly getting it out there, though. I could see why it would be secretive because it's a military application. And that's kind of a theme in the X-Men stories too. I guess the next link we'll share in a little bit. It's on that Glass 2019. You've actually watched the movie, whereas I haven't.
I've watched all 3 of them.
But in this installment of the trilogy, they are trying to get superheroes are found and killed so that they never get to do anything or create ruckus or whatever, I guess. It was a very interesting detail that they didn't expand on. It was like the person that ran the mental asylum where these, quote unquote superheroes would end up a lot of times. They were just like gatekeepers to basically study them and kill them whenever they were done with them.
Those people were part of the same group. They wanted to, spoiler alert, the lady.
Yeah, go ahead and spoil it. I don't care.
Yeah, the lady that is taking care of them at the institute and trying to convince them they don't have superhuman powers is part of the group of known people that have superhuman powers that they're trying to make sure the world doesn't know about them. They're trying to keep it a secret. They're like a 10,000-year-old society keeping secret their superhero powers. They don't want the world to know about it. But at the end of that movie, spoiler alert again, it goes out to viral video, the fight between the Beast and David and Mr. Glass.
The fight between the Beast and David, you're right, dude. Sorry, just to get
You're the one that said it before the show.
Well, I know, but you're getting me excited because it all makes so much sense. Anyway, let me read this because I keep getting ahead of myself. Professor Ashley adds, not everybody will be susceptible to these diseases, but for those who are, this will be a revolutionary new approach to preventing disease. There is still so much to do, not least in terms of ensuring the medicine is safe, and nothing in genetic medicine is ever guaranteed. But as now it stands that it looks likely that we may be able to avert a large number of heart attacks. How ironic they would specifically mention that when that's quite the contrary. And strokes, and perhaps many other diseases to keep people healthy and happy for longer. Well, I mean, we know this is just a bunk right here because what we see happening are Bell's palsy, aneurysms, strokes, blood clots.
That's why I said that to my mom. I said, what would make people run to something as poisonous and awful as this? Oh, I know. Superhuman strength, living forever, cured of all ailments. That's going to make them run to it and want to take it, but it's not going to give that to them.
And remember that in Revelation 9, it talks about the people receiving all these plagues and wishing they could die and can't and stuff. So, which is really, again, the Resident Evil storyline. What did it start out as? Like an anti-cancer type therapeutic or something? And I Am Legend was kind of similar as well in that regard. So you're right. I think that a lot of people would be tempted. Think about it. Universal basic income. You never will get sick. You'll have, I don't know, probably some application where the Morgellons. Oh, yeah. I didn't get to mention that. I saw an instance where there was somebody recording how the Morgellons reacted to the radio frequency, and that's what got me on the RF thing. But like it would change its shape and react to it. So it was kind of interesting to think, well, what is the purpose of that? And where is that in somebody's body? And what's it doing?
To control your body like a foot soldier and a hive mind.
Matrix.
Hive
yes. Mind. Need the final red pill, the blood of the lamb, to purge it all. Oh yeah, even in the Matrix, they took the parasite out of him, didn't they? They when he took the red pill, they sucked a parasite out of his navel. It was some type of Hydra looking creature. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, let's read from Psalm 2. The Triumphant Messiah. So again, I guess this could be a version of a hero. Why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, and the Lord shall have them in derision. Verse 5. Then shall he speak unto them in his wrath, and vex them in his sore displeasure. Verse 6. Yet have I set my king upon my holy hill of Zion. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son. This day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Be wise now, therefore, O ye kings, be instructed, ye judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Kiss the Son, S-O-N, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are they that put their trust in him. This is so intense when you consider what the context is here, right? He's saying that, why are these nations complaining? You know, it's not going to get them anywhere. Look at all the plotting that they're doing. Like we were pointing out, the G20 and all gathering in Italy around the gates of hell. It's just hilarious in a way, which it says here, he's even laughing at them, right? So he sitteth in the heavens and shall laugh. The Lord shall have them in derision. So this is where we get the, I think is it 1 Thessalonians 5:3? They say peace, peace, and safety, and sudden destruction come upon them, travail, like travail. So again, they're going to be plotting and thinking that their plan's going to succeed, and it's all going to be brought down in derision. So, but their plotting is to say, let us break their bands. Bands is a military term. So let's see Jeremiah right here. Jumping a little bit ahead, but this is another mentioning here. Babylon's punishment. No one shall retrieve from you. Oh, excuse me. This is Jeremiah 51:27. I'll try to slow down just a tad. I'm getting a little too. No one shall retrieve for you a cornerstone or a foundation stone, because you will become desolate forever, declares the Lord. Verse 27, raise a banner in the land, blow the ram's horn among the nations, prepare the nations against her, summon the kingdoms against her, Ararat, Menai, and Ashkenaz, appoint a captain against her, bring up horses like swarming locusts. Interesting. Prepare the nations for battle against her, the kings of the Medes, their governors, and all their officials, and the lands they rule. So it's just like when he decides he's going to let it all go, we're going to see, like he says here, these the banner is going to be raised. So we see in Isaiah 11, for instance, a sign or a flag. It calls it an ensign, which is a banner. And also, I think in Revelation, when it talks about the name being written on the thigh, I think that's a bit of a mistranslation, perhaps. It seems to suggest it's a banner with the name, but not actually written on the thigh. But a standard that's at the head, like you know how they had the pennants and flags and things of that nature. So he's going to rally the troops, as it were, and it's kind of interesting because it relates back to this here. And so when he puts his king on the holy hill of Zion, it's going to ruin their plans, because a decree will go out. So again, the Zechariah 3, the rebuking of Satan that occurs, that's where he chooses to speak, right? And then we see the 144,000 and the high priest standing before him, and then they're delivered as like a child, delivered out of the judgment. So that harpazo element kind of comes up here again, and again talks about possession, but in the sense of an inheritance, which is kind of how spiritual captivity works. You know, when his people were disobedient, he would basically allow them, I don't know if to sell them is the right word, but he would allow them to be taken captive into these other lands, which were ruled by principalities, spirits and such. So they would be handed over unto them because they weren't following his laws and his ways. And so these were other examples of like shepherds, you know, but not a lot of them are not good, and they feed on the flock. And it talks about how it's going to break them with a rod of iron, like potter's vessels. So, you know, clay vessels are one-time use. They shatter easily. Just really powerful verse. I just wanted to share that one. And speaking of shattered potter's vessels, this Mr. Glass character from the film Unbreakable. What was the beast one? There's a second one.
Split.
So that's like the guy with split personalities. He's got like 25 personalities. One of them's the beast. Anyway, the reason I want to bring this up, dissociative identity disorder, DID. And then you got David. So there's a David versus the beast. This guy here is the beast. Okay, so they call David the overseer. That's kind of interesting, because in Isaiah 11 it talks about the branch from the stem of Jesse and the root of David. So anyway, you just see this interesting comparison of an overseer named David versus this beast character, and you got this guy named Mr. Glass, whose bones are very easy to break, because remember, Christ died without any broken bones, so he's like the total opposite of him in a sense, you know, for this comparison's sake. And so his he can manipulate. So him just being around people, he can kind of influence them, kind of like Satan in a sense. Let me see. All right. Well, I don't want to go on and on about this, but I will share this. But they do talk about the horde. I still don't know what some of these things mean. Can you expand on what the horde is, maybe, since you've seen the movie? Do you know what?
The horde is the beast. So the beast calls on the horde often, or the beast is not the beast. The beast has, before he's the beast, he's got a whole number of people that he is. And
also, he like cycles through the horde before he gets to the beast.
Cycles through them, and the beast, when the beast comes, he has superhuman strength and abilities to climb walls and squeeze somebody to death, those kind of things. He's just extremely strong. But if you look at please go down again a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
It says, okay, stop. It says, the man struggling with the ID has been nicknamed the Horde, because they all get these nicknames from the people in the media, right? So I can't remember. The Overseer is the name of David Dunn, and the Horde is the nickname for the character that is the Beast, and Mr. Glass is the nickname for Elijah Price.
Okay, so here it says David engages Kevin's superhuman personality, the Beast, in a brief battle until armed forces led by Dr. Ellie Staple. That's the member of the 10,000-year-old group that's trying to control them, right? She interviews and imprisons them at Raven Hill, a psychiatric facility. Then Elijah Price, Mr. Glass, he had actually caused the train derailment that caused this guy to discover that he was a superhero, because he didn't die. And I think in that same crash, maybe the Beast had lost his mother or something like that. I don't know. So he like had a reason to hate him. So anyway, the end of the movie basically is that this dude had been for years and years working on some type of like really big story arc where he was manipulating all these people to come together one day for the perfect storm, if you will, where they would be forced to awaken their abilities and be shown to the world. And in fact, he uses the beast in many different ways. There's like something called the Osaka building that is being unveiled, and like the beast presents himself at that, and that's like kind of where this all kind of starts and goes down. I don't know, I just thought, I mean, I didn't like the movie clips that I saw necessarily in terms of like the acting and whatnot, but I did find the story kind of interesting.
I think all three movies are great and worth watching.
Yeah, so you've
But
actually seen it, I haven't. So
be aware that the Split is a little bit traumatic, so it's hard to watch. So
well, I guess that's the character I had the most trouble liking, was the one with all the personalities and stuff. It was just kind of hard for me to deal
you
with.
shouldn't like him. He's pretty murderous.
Yeah.
But
So I guess he's a
I
good
think
actor if I didn't like him, right?
I think if you're into M. Night Shyamalan at all, of any of his movies, that you might enjoy these three. And I think they are well done, but also indicative of the truth. Just like I just watched The Village with Sean with Ninja Scroll, and he did that one. Just like the movie Signs, they're all going to tell you something. We just watched the movie Hot Fuzz. I mean, that's funny, but they still have a New World Order
I haven't
group.
seen it.
Yes, so it's still funny, but it's still the same truths in it. So it's just you gotta enjoy movies still, guys. It's okay to enjoy movies and have fun finding the symbolism. But if it's traumatic or upsetting to you, turn it off. Don't go that far. But Split was a little harder for me to watch, but I think the trilogy altogether is very well done.
Yeah, and again, I know it might sound cliche to say this, but do in fact put on the armor of God if you intend to do like
Yes.
a decode on
Yes,
something
yes,
that you
yes.
know is going to be,
Every time.
like she said, traumatic perhaps. And the reason I say that is because these things, a lot of times with music too, we're kind of coaxed into like an alpha state with our brain waves, and so you are in like a meditative receptive state. So I think part of wearing the armor is when you're not in that passive mind control state, and you can actually actively filter out.
I totally agree.
So yeah.
Glad you brought
Sorry,
that
I just
up.
wanted to mention
No,
that.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's really important, and I did used to remember to say that if you're going to watch these things, pray the full armor, and if it gets to where it feels wrong, turn it off. Don't watch it.
Sometimes, a lot of times, I have to cover my eyes. I know it might seem
Oh
even
yeah,
out,
if it's
but
something gory, I just hit this. You have the
can't
10-second
take it.
skip button. I just hit that.
Let me just continue here. It says he frees Kevin and then manipulates David into using his strength to break out of the room by relating a plan for the beast to reveal himself. So he tells this David character that he's planning for the beast to reveal himself to the world at the opening of the Osaka Tower. So I'm sure this probably has some symbolism involved. Like the word Osaka probably means something. I don't even, this may exist in the real world too. A new skyscraper in Philadelphia, which means the city of brotherly love, right? And that's even one of the letters that was written was to the Church of Philadelphia. So there's probably something there, guys. While Elisha destroys a chemical lab in the building, potentially killing thousands. So the Osaka Tower must contain a chemical lab. Interesting. So anyway, let me get to the part here that she's like talking about. They're part of some group or whatever. I found it a minute ago and lost it. So
I don't remember the name of the group, but they have those little 4-leaf clover tattoos on
Yeah,
their
well,
arm.
it's a 3-leaf clover. I
Oh, is
noticed.
it 3-leaf, not 4?
Yeah, because
I made an
you
assumption
would
there.
think it would be a 4th, but it was a 3, which made me think of the tribe of Dan, because like the Irish and such. I couldn't help but think of that, because it talks about in Genesis 49 how they're going to be a judge for the other tribes. Here we go. Okay, finally found it. While a SWAT officer drowns David in a flooded pothole, Staple, the doctor lady, reveals she is part of a clandestine organization that has been suppressing the existence of superhumans, or what she calls metahumans, for a millennia by tracking and killing those with superhuman abilities.
Okay. Yeah, she doesn't have superhuman abilities. She's part of a group that kills. Okay. Interesting.
And well, either way, it made sense to me. As they see such individuals as a threat to the stability of the world, order. So they don't say New World Order.
They don't give them a name.
But it kind of reminds me of like the plot in Radio Free Albemuth, where they had what they called the Fappers, which were these like government shills that worked for the government, and they would go around and interview people, kind of like the Pokemon police that we're seeing crop up now. So like, imagine you're not being patriotic enough, you're not being anti, what, I don't know, whatever stupid woke thing you want to use, like, you know, the woke police, essentially. So you can kind of think of it that way. Like, if you're not one of these people, you're falling into this like superhuman category, I guess. I don't know, because maybe your immunity or whatever other thing. But so I know there might not be strong parallels yet in that, but it was still kind of interesting to consider, because like the remnant does kind of become like this small group of people, you know. And if these people just are so shut off to the spirit that they can't even understand you and where you're coming from, it's kind of a similar thing, you know, especially if we're witnessing miracles and, you know, the body of Christ is experiencing these things, perhaps even some supernatural phenomena. It could cause, you know, some reactions like this. So that, I think I shared this already, so I'll go ahead and skip to this. Can't remember what this, oh, okay. So this is our moron Nimrod leader. So I'm going to share this latest gaffe of his. I mean, you just cannot make this stuff up, guys. Like, this is so ridiculous. So this is Reuters, okay? This is not some dude and his dog making videos. Like, this is just, it speaks for itself. So let's just let it go. So notice he has Pelosi with him. They're even holding hands at one point. Red and blue, serious colors. It's not this. It's like he'll stop and talk. There we go.
You're going to ask me 1,000 different questions, and they're all legit. I'm telling you, we're going to get this done. It doesn't matter when. It doesn't matter whether it's in 6 minutes, 6 days, or 6 weeks.
Oh, good Lord. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure the volume was up enough for that. It's funny how... Come on, man.
Come on, man. He gets super triggered. Come on. He says, why don't you just become president yourself?
So, yeah, was that what he said? I could...
Yeah, he says something like, if you don't like it, you can run yourself. Why don't you run? And that's what he always does. He gets all triggered. He's like, oh, you don't like it? Well, why don't you do it?
You're going to have to run for office someday, man. Okay, yeah, you're right. He did get triggered.
You're going to have to do it yourself.
How unprofessional. He's such an idiot. He's truly a Nimrod. Like, we literally have a Nimrod.
Yep.
And that's the whole point. Like,
because that was a thing I called people that I thought were dummies when I was a kid. You Nimrod.
That's the name of... what's Offspring had an album named Nimrod. And then, of course, American Idiot's another one of theirs. Of course, they're all woke idiots themselves now, but I just always, that's the reference I always heard growing up, was it was an Offspring album. Or wait, Green Day. I'm sorry, not Offspring. I'm sorry, Offspring. But yeah, anyway, we're getting into the dark Torah stuff now. So, yes, Doc, thanks for quoting it for us. But I tell you, like, it's like he could have used any, like, he just shows what his state, like, his mind already seems to be a sewer swamp anyway. And, like, what the most coherent thing he has said is this. You know, it's like, what is on your mind, dude? Like, you're an empty vessel and you're just full of this, huh? So, like, I don't know, man. I saw that as like fruit falling out of his tree, if you will. And then the person he's holding hands with Immediately after that, goes to Rome to meet with the Pope, and there's the gates of hell. I mean, the both of them even. Like right after that, they go to that. I mean, it's just like, I just want to scream. Could do any good. Anyway, I mean, they make it easy, at least. Like, can you imagine if they were actually intelligent? We'd be done for. All right. Oh, I already shared this one. So this is the collected work of Watchman Nee, set 1, volume 16, study on Revelation. So we're just kind of borrowing his commentary here for this part right here. And I wanted to read this just because it adds a little bit of context and helps relate to some other verses. Quote, this is from Revelation 6, 5 through 6. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature saying, "Come." And I saw, and behold, a black horse. It's the titular portion there. And he who sits on it, it had a balance in his hand. And I heard, as it were, a voice in the midst of the 4 living creatures saying, a chenix of wheat for a denarius, and 3 chenixes of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine. What I find interesting about this is the balance is the symbol for Libra, which is October, and we're in that meow, actually. So, and I think I had a story and somehow lost it, of the shipping containers off the coast, West Coast. They've, I suspicion, probably a false flag, staged an oil incident off the coast. And so I don't know if they're using that as the excuse to keep all these ships off the coast from actually porting in, from berthing, because you've got to remember we're dealing with naval language and naval law in that regard.
Maritime. Mm-hmm.
So they can't be born. They can't be birthed. They receive no birth certificate at port, which, remember, port is associated with Portunus and Janus, those types of things as well. And what I also noticed here is how similar this is to the word phoenix. I mean, if you just change the C to a P, I mean, you pretty much have phoenix. So, only this is a reference to a type of currency. So he goes on to say here, the black is the color for famine. And so you can reference that here. If somebody wants to throw those verse links in the chat, I'd appreciate it, just for context. So in Jeremiah 14, 1 through 3, Lamentations 4, 8 through 9, and also 5, 10. In the Bible, wheat is measured and not weighed. Balances are used to weigh precious things, but here a balance is used for measuring wheat. Hence, not a single grain is missed, because it says, quote, a chenix of wheat for a denarius. A denarius is a person's wages for 1 day's labor. Remember in Matthew 20, we talk about the parable of the vineyard and the gathering of the laborers and how they're paid a penny, right, for their labor, regardless of how long they had been at the labor. They're all paid the same, right? So it's kind of an interesting parallel to that, perhaps. It is only one person's wage because got ahead of myself. I like when that happens, though. It's funny. It is only one person's wage because in Matthew 20 verse 2 rather, the pay for a labor is a denarius a day. Okay, so I guess a denarius is like a penny then. And remember that we get the Janus penny that we've covered in the past, and that was, what was that? That was minted in 1776, right? Which is 888 divided by 2, or 888 times 2 rather is 1776. Kind of interesting how we're going to be seeing the 8th king rise as well. 3 chenixes of barley for a denarius. It says here, this is important. Normally, the ratio of the value of barley to wheat is 1 to 2. implying that barley would have more value. But here it becomes a ratio of 1 to 3, meaning it's worth even more at that point. Okay, so the ratio goes from 1 to 2, which is 50-50, and then here when it goes 1 to 3, that's a 33% kind of thing. Okay, 2 Kings 7:16 and 18. I'll share that real quick. I don't have the links, but just so people can do more in-depth research there. Here in 2 Kings 7:16 and 18, record a ratio of 1 to 2. Do not harm the oil and the wine. I don't necessarily agree with his interpretation at this point, but I'll go ahead and share it as well. This shows that at other times they were not considered food and were harmed, but now even the oil and the wine should not be harmed. During the time of famine, even oil and wine cannot be wasted. At the same time, grapevines and olive trees are preserved by God. Now that I understand, I understand that, but that's the whole point of that, was so that they could have the tabernacle services. So I don't know why they didn't pick up on that. But anyway, in the past 2,000 years, wars, famines, and earthquakes and so forth have occurred more frequently as the time draws nearer. They come in greater numbers as the days go by. Well, of course, with La Palma, even, that's a great example. When I heard the, what's the portion of the volcano called that, like something collapsed, like the top of it.
Don't know.
Don't know the term that they give to it, but anyway, the top of the volcano kind of like collapsed in on itself. And I think there's been a lot of going on over there. So, you know, the gates of hell are chilling out in Italy, while in Spain we got that biggest eruption they've had in 500 years taking place. And I don't know. So, and we normally share the earthquake site. So I didn't have it up tonight, but I guess I could try to look for it real quick. Earthquakes today. There we go. And this site just records all the earthquake and volcanic activity, rather. Well, I guess I'll just have to share the link as it is. Okay, I don't lag too much. Okay, so it's pretty up to date. I mean, even 9 minutes ago they updated everything. So, but I already dropped the link, so I'll go ahead and get rid of that one. So here's another Biden-related news story. Okay, so Biden's $600 financial reporting requirement could lead to even more violations of taxpayer rights. So now we got the IRS. Investigating anybody that has more than $600 in their checking account, and if you spend certain amounts, then you're like flagged and investigated and looked at. It's just so ridiculous. And of course, they want this universal basic income where everybody's staying at home. Then they're going to pay you to stay at home, and I'm sure that's going to be in excess of $600 a month. So it's like automatically they take everybody's job away by crashing the economy, put you on some type of fixed income, and then what do you know? Your income exceeds this really low threshold. So, you know, we got to take a look at what you're doing, because with all that money, you're obviously doing something other than paying your rent and buying food. You got to be into some nefarious activity. Like, I just think it's so ridiculous. So anyway, let's just go over this real quick. So the IRS Criminal Investigation Division regularly violated taxpayers' rights and skirted or ignored due process requirements when investigating taxpayers for allegedly violating the $10,000 currency transaction reporting requirements, according to a 2017 report by the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. Man, this is alphabet soup, guys. In addition, less than 1 in 10 investigations uncovered violations of tax law. These findings should be alarming to taxpayers, given that President Biden has proposed creating new comprehensive financial account information reporting regime, which would force the disclosure of any business or personal account that exceeds $600. I mean, folks, at any given time, I have that in my wallet. Like, this is absurd. Like, like that's not. If it was at least 6,000, that'd make a little more sense, I guess. But like, that is just, and even then, it's still unconstitutional and crazy. But like, most people get a paycheck more than that. You know what I mean? Like, this is absurd. So setting a threshold this low is just like a dragnet. Not only would this include the bank, loan, and investment accounts of virtually every individual in business, but it would also include third-party providers like Venmo, Cash App, and PayPal. I've even given friends like thousands of dollars. So like, you know what I mean? Like, that just opens up all sorts of shenanigans. Under the Bank Secrecy Act, financial institute. Oh yeah, and they want to be able to start taxing you when you do this. Like, if I were to transfer money from, I don't know, like an account to Apple Pay or some app like this or whatever, then they'll tax you on that too. The government wants a cut of that, even though you're just probably sending it to a friend. So this could affect the raffle type stuff in a sense, but I'm not sure how. So just keep this stuff on your radar.
I know they've
folks.
already. It's already something for whatever we do. Whenever we send anything through
I
Venmo,
know,
Cash
man.
App, or PayPal, we say, call it something that we're not actually doing. Call it anything else.
But the fact of the matter is, like, it's just a matter of time and steps before it's no cash at all. We already know this, so this kind of stuff shouldn't surprise us. But it's just interesting to see them, like, when they take these steps. It's like eventually they're going to step on the Gadsden snake of sorts. And anyway, and it talks about how the I think the horned serpent will bite the heel of the horse in the path and throw the rider off or something like that. There's might have been in Genesis or another verse, but anyway, it made me think of that just now. Under the Bank Secrecy Act, financial institutions are currently required to report transactions exceeding 10,000 or multiple transactions in aggregate. I mean, come on. So basically what they're saying is, it's not enough for us to peek at your $10,000 transaction. But if you are trying to get around the requirement by doing like an 8,000, then a 2,000, we're going to look at that too, in a single day anyway. So, I mean, if you're actually a successful business person and you're working with high amounts of money, like, you're basically inviting them into your business. The more successful you are, essentially, it's just kind of absurd. So they're obviously gunning for like Bitcoin people and things like that too, I think. The acronym here: examine 306 investigations undertaken by IRS between 2012 and 2014 for violating this law, where a total of 55.3 million assets were seized. During the audit, the sample size was narrowed to 278 investigations, as several did not meet the criterion for inclusion. So, that's not a huge difference right there, but there were still a lot of people caught in this version of the dragnet that were innocent, according to these laws. Not that they even did anything wrong at all, but so you can see that it's not perfect science anyhow. But again, this is how they're trying to fund the, publicly they say it's what, 3 trillion or 3.5 trillion, but it's really, in reality, it's more like $8 trillion budget reconciliation bill. So in part, they want to fund all this. Isn't Biden famous for saying right now that at least the $3.5 trillion version of this is not going to, it's going to cost zero? I mean, really? So how they are justifying saying that is that they're planning to use the IRS to go after people. So I guess that's why they're setting the bar so low, is so that they can make sure that they don't miss even the minnows in this finely woven net. So like that every fish will have to pay his due, right? So I think it's just kind of interesting here. How they're planning to finance this spending bill, which, mind you, they call it the budget. This is budget reconciliation. So all this should be is the passage of a budget, but they're trying to tack on all this other junk, this pork, these entitlement programs, so on and so forth. And all these people want this stuff in the bill because they want to get reelected and they want to be able to go back to the constituents and say, oh, here's all this free stuff that we're going to give you. Please elect me, because they know the midterms are coming up. So this kind of urgency and such made me think about the part in Revelation where it's talking about how they know that they only have a short time. So, Satan comes with great wrath because he knows the time is short. So, I don't know if it's something as trivial as like, oh, the election changes everything, but it's one thing to consider how they have the House, they have the Senate, they have the executive branch. The only thing they don't have is this judicial, but we still see Sotomayor, Sotar, I can't, sorry, I'm butchering her name, but the female that's on the female justice. Sotomayor or something like that.
Yes, Sotomayor. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
I think that was an Obama. But anyway, that's the only branch that they don't have a strong hand in, and they still can't pass this. So indeed, they do have but a short time to try and cram this nonsense down our throats, which, by the way, it's this budget reconciliation bill that contains the mandate that if you have over 100 employees, that then they have to all take the Pokemon or they get fired. And of course, Biden's out there talking about this and how that's justified and such, So it's like the closer we get to this Green New Deal agenda, global carbon tax, which, remember, carbon's got 6 electrons, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. We got the carbon tax, the 666 Build Back Better tax, looming over us like this. And so, yeah, when I said Build Back Better, I wanted to emphasize this would have alternatively been a good title. But I'm starting to see this more often, too. So it's interesting how they use the 6 to kind of look like a B there. Makes you wonder. So, like, he's really towing the line here with this agenda that's being handed down from the overseers at the, G20. So he's getting his marching orders right now from the gates of hell, essentially. And this is what they want everybody to be under, is this high scrutiny, AI, Big Brother type system. There's a lot here, and it's, some of it's kind of technical and legal jargon, so I don't want to like bore people to death. But the gist is, man, over $600, they're coming after you. So I know that may not affect everybody, but I'm as poor as you can almost get, really, So it affects me. So I know it's got to affect probably everybody else that's listening right now. And I already shared that article. So I wanted to share this with folks because, it's just pretty absurd. And of course, that's just what's been known. The bill is it's the biggest spending bill in history. Also in the breadth of it, like just the size of it. So if folks are gleaning anything from it or hearing anything else that they've hidden in it, please share it, because the people voting on this haven't even read it. And of course, I was, giving some mild praise to Joe Manchin of West Virginia for kind of stalling things a little bit, but I'm hearing that he's having secret meetings with Nimrod, and he's already broke and went to 2.1, I think, trillion, which is still way too high. So I think when it's all said and done, he's going to get what he wants, and then it's just going to pass anyway. But what saddened me was he's talking about the debt ceiling or whatever, but he's not mentioned one thing about the mandate on the employers with 100 employees or more. So I'm more offended that he didn't mention that, because he should just dig his heels in the ground and be like, not only am I giving you $0, but I want you to take that out of it, or I'm not voting for it, period. And see, that would be more of an integrity stance, but we're not even seeing that. So I don't even want to, I'm not going to laud him at all, because it's not even on his principles, but just on some mammon-esque dollar thing, fiscal conservative BS. So let's continue here. So where we had read the kind of commentary, I did want to share the actual verse. So here's the link to Revelation 6. And so we were reading out of, I think, the third seal. Yeah, the black horse. So there's that particular seal. And so there would have been a white horse, which this could be, it's talking about the covenant here, maybe. And then you got some war, and then the economy gets wrecked, and then the fourth seal, then the death, and things like that. So I think this will be when people really start to wake up, is when the stage is set, so to speak, and the perfect storm is finally here, where you got, could you imagine? Obviously it's worse in some parts of the world for people. I understand that, but it's like if this were a movie, you know what I mean? Like it's predictable even. Of course, we got the book telling us the future already, and we know that, but it's just kind of funny to me, like how any normal person couldn't look at the world and just think like how different it was 10 years ago and think like, gee, maybe there's something to this Jesus talk I keep hearing, because he was telling us the future, right? So I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff to point at, especially when you go to the Revelations. So maybe when you're talking to folks, you can kind of at least reference things like this, because, money's something that a lot of people can relate to. I'm sure everybody's kind of feeling the pinch, as it were, especially if they lost their job and they're still anti-Pokemon. You see what I mean? So there's going to be folks that probably would be very receptive, because remember, the wicked generation will get no sign but the sign of Jonah. And so he was sent to preach repentance to Nineveh, who was wicked. But wickedness is kind of like a reference to ignorance. Like they're doing evil, but they don't realize it's evil. So like if you come and preach repentance to them, they're like, oh, well, you should have said something, So I'll start doing it this way. And so many were saved in Nineveh, and the city was spared from destruction. So it's kind of like that, where I think a lot of these people that are just ignorant, but still, something inside of them is telling them not to take part in this. Like those are the people that are quite potentially, lost lambs, so to speak. So it's very important to be still ministering to people and just trying to find verses, like the red pill, blue pill kind of thing. Like say, hey, here's a judgment that's coming, but here's a salvational aspect, and just kind of shock them a little bit if it takes that, because some people, fear of the Lord comes before wisdom, but that's just the natural way it goes. Anyway, oh yeah, 6 seals, terror. So I know it's October, so I hope you guys didn't mind talking about the seals, because I know they're scary. But anyway, the stars falling and such, remember that rebuking in heaven that takes place. It's also talking about how it compares it to like a fig tree shaking when the holy wind hits. So like the spirit getting poured out, right? Shakes this fig and it drops its untimely fig. So it's out of season, right? So like this court case that's taking place, and they're cast out of there and they're rebuked. It's the word for stars here is actual figurative, which is kind of punny, right? Fun. It's a nice pun. It's literal and or figurative, it says. So either the literal stars will fall out of the sky, which I saw a weird video out of China where it looked like stars were actually falling out of the sky, and they were like hovering in the air and stuff. It was really weird. So if anybody's seen that, maybe comment on it in the chat. But anyway, it's supposed to be a really wild event, and so like we can't play the song obviously, but and maybe I can even make the speed a little quicker.
Yeah, if you play the song for more than like 7 seconds or something, it will lag, I think.
Yeah. And she has like over 3.1 billion views on this video, and she's the second most watched female artist on YouTube alone. And you said Juicy J, or not Juicy J, Flame gets a royalty every time somebody plays this song or something.
Yes, because he won his lawsuit against her in 2019.
Interesting. Okay, so when I restart this, at the very beginning is kind of key. So I'm just going to kind of pause this at a few spots. I kind of know where I want to make a comment. So at the very beginning, in fact, let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Theater mode, is that what it is?
Theater mode will take out all those things on the side. There you go.
There, okay. All right, so at the very beginning here, and this song is very catchy, so don't listen to it.
You may need to stop it and start it here too, because sometimes you'll get even so, I guess if I get a copyright, it's usually not a strike. It's just that the money goes to her, but then the money will go to him. So just
well, I'm not gonna like play it. I'm just gonna like jump to certain scenes because I'm just trying to explain some things. So like if you notice here, remember when we were reading in Genesis the other day, it was all water, right? And then like there was the first land and such, and you can even see like the pyramid here in the distance. So the pyramid is kind of supposed to be representative, and I got a link here. We're going to talk about the Ben stone. I guess I could go ahead and drop the link. So anyway, the pyramid is meant to kind of represent that. But anyway, she's out here on this boat, and there's a message when it first starts. Hopefully you can catch that real quick. Okay, so it's talking about Memphis, Egypt. Of course, it just says something other silly right here. Then at some point, zooms in a little bit, you see these symbols. One red eye. You got the eye down here too. I don't know if it's as clear right now because it's dark, but she's got these cat guardians helping her out here. And then notice that on her hair, hold on, I kind of lost it already. There's the eye comes up again. Her servants, yeah, the Wajet, the third eye. So remember again, like if these people gain access to this knowledge, but keep it from the peasantry, if you will, while they themselves forget the whole meaning of it and become possessed themselves, you know, that kind of talk, where they're supposed to be wise as serpents but gentle as doves. Well, the idol shepherds instead want the worship, and they want to feed off the faith themselves. So the stars demand like worship and stuff. So think about all the good that these musicians and movie stars and athletes could be doing for the kingdom of God if they were leading people back to Christ. So that's where I kind of do respect some of those folks, like the Tebow guy who prays or whatever, even if it's like some mild little representation of faith, but it's still the effect they have on people is great a lot of times. So the stars in Revelation 6:13 that fall from heaven are those that are rebuked, right? So it'd be the idol shepherds, as it were, that are thrown out of heaven. So in Zechariah 11:17, we see that the right arm is hit with the sword, withered up, like the fig tree is in Matthew 24. And then the right eye is also taken out. Now, so we see here that she's actually sporting the right eye here as well, but yet no other eye. So it's just the one eye pattern again and again. So this is like the symbol of a idol shepherd, like it's their sign. So when you see the Pope with his black eye, or all these other dudes with a black eye, that's the mark of an idol shepherd. So I think it's some type of ritual they have to go through to inhabit the spirit.
Yeah, it's called skull scraping. It's transmutation.
You're so smart, Aaron. You've covered all the stuff in the past. Anyway, sorry for pausing so long. I just wanted to show that eye pattern there. And of course, with it being blue, that's a reference to the law. Like remember the garments of the high priests had blue fringes on it, so that's a reference to the law. And notice her guards here are blue in color, and this is a common thing we see sometimes, like a reference to the blue-blooded thing. Now you'll see later she's like a queen figure with blue servants and cats, and then her pharaoh consorts, which again, this follows like the Tammuz prototype, like the husband of the goddess, right? She's looking for a king to rule with, and so all these suitors are coming to her and bringing her gifts and such. So it kind of reminds me of the story of Solomon and Cleopatra. Very, very, very similar to that. But anyway, they got red servants, and she's got the blue servants. And then, of course, they are a lot of times associated with dogs, and where she's associated with the cats. Now, in this particular scene, this is why I'm pausing so early on, is that there's a sun here rising. And so this is kind of like when you see the unfinished pyramid with the eye sitting on top. It's basically representative of this first mound of earth, and then the rising sun over it. So that's where you get your pyramid, with the unfinished top and the all-seeing eye. So anyway, let me see if there's I'm going to kind of let it play and preview there. There's another one-eyed dude right here, but actually missed him. Let's see if I can catch him again real quick. So she gives him a diamond, but instead of giving it to her, I guess he decides, oh, this looks good on my hand. Anyway, but he's got one eye also, and his in this case is the left eye. So in the verse Zechariah 11:17, let me put that in here real quick. So it does talk about how your right eye is taken and your right arm's taken, and leaving you with the left eye. So I don't know how detail specific they get with these rituals, but according to the verse, they should, I guess probably their right eye should be the one that's blackened, although I've seen it both ways. Even when they do their symbolism, like covering up one eye or the other or whatever, it's always usually a reference back to this.
It's just two wings of the same bird. It's the right-hand path and the left-hand path.
Exactly. Yes. And we skip a little bit here. She's another suitor gets zapped by lightning and turned into like
lightning.
Yeah. So she basically turns him into a bunch of gems. And anyway, let me skip ahead a little bit here. She does it to another guy, brings her foodstuffs. Hold on. I'm trying to get through this quick, guys. Okay, this dude comes in wraps. Oh, yeah, so this dude has
his rap is so creepy, too, because he talks about being hungry like Jeffrey Dahmer or something. Really gross.
Says that she'll eat your heart like Jeffrey Dahmer.
That's right.
Yeah, and then he also calls her, she's a beast. He calls her karma.
She's a beast.
So that's another reason why I wanted to mention it, because we're in the Glass movie, we're talking about the beast. Of course, he was a male in that regard, but he's this Juicy J fella here is referring to her as a beast, and of course, she's sexually immoral, or the sexual immorality that goes along with her portrayal here is like she's, I guess, a harlot type thing, maybe. I'm not sure, but she's not wearing a veil. Well, she turned the dude into wine and drank him because he gave her some hot food and didn't give her a drink. But anyway, he offended her. I think at one point a dog approaches her. Yeah, she's like using a stripper pole and stuff. Okay, so here, notice how all these dudes are pharaohs. And they always got the red dudes with them, whereas she's the blue. So it's like basically like a divine feminine blue versus the pharaonic red. So some would call it like the Eye of Ra and the Eye of Horus. or in some sense, even like Saturn, who has one eye at the southern pole, and Jupiter, which has the red eye, which is a storm, because she makes the comment here in the lyrics. Yeah, I got the lyrics right here. So, pardon me, I just want to make sure I don't miss anything here. Yeah, are you ready for a perfect storm? Because once you're mine, there's no going back. So does that not sound a lot like possession? And so she's posing the question, so you want to play with magic? Boy, you should know what you're falling for. And asking if you really dare to do this, because she's coming at them like a dark horse. So she's referring to herself like a dark horse. But also the Juicy J fella is calling her a beast named Karma. So, we got a few comparisons here. And she's saying that if you were to agree to this, you'd be accepting the perfect storm, what's in the middle of a storm, Aaron?
An eye.
Yes, indeed. So, interesting stuff here. She's talking about making her, your one and only. So again, like a marriage kind of proposal here. So this helps to explain like some of what we see in Revelation, where there's a wedding and there's a beast. So it's like there's a wedding, like an unholy version of the holy version, taking place at the same time, as it were. So I see that like compliance with the beast system, you're becoming part of that Jezebel spirit, and she's trying to usurp the vineyard and inheritance of Yah's people. So very, very interesting comparison there, and parallels rather. I think there was some more. Oh yeah, so she says, mark my words, my love will make you levitate like a bird without a cage. So when we talk about the Ben stone, which again is the pyramid, there's a reference to the phoenix. And so I think that this is kind of a reference to that. The Ben bird is supposed to be like a heron, a gray or blue heron, but also a phoenix. So we'll discuss that in a minute. Let me see. Oh yeah, here it is. So he calls her a beast. He calls her Karma. She'll eat your heart out like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm sure he was just trying to rhyme, but at the same time, she is eating these dudes in some instances. So, the mark of a giant, Enza or Enzo, would be the, consumption of human flesh. And he, talks about how she's precious, her love's precious, you should keep it, and so on and so forth. But if you break her heart, she'll be retributive in nature. But then he talks about a fairy tale ending, knight in shining armor, sleeping beauty kind of thing, which, remember, there was a poisoned apple, a poisoned fruit. Well, technology is fruit from the tree of knowledge, right? So you could even consider the Pokemon as like a poison apple, right? And I'd be interested to see which hand it was the witch gave the apple with. Was it her left hand? Because the left hand's the one associated with venom, and which is another word for virus. And then, okay, so I guess that was it. So that's just all for the lyrics there. But there was one last part here in a scene. There's not much more. Yeah, I'm sorry for all the lewdness here. So a giant pyramid appears as a gift from this pharaoh. Now, she doesn't kill this one. She just turns him into a dog, which is interesting because the pyramid's shafts line up with Sirius, which is the dog star, and also Orion, the belt, which is considered like a pharaonic shepherd type energy. And of course, Orion is the fool, and also known as Anu's shepherd. So very interesting that the video was packed full of symbolism. I just didn't want to give it too much praise or glory there. But anyway, thank you for letting me review that. But that was just basically to show within the context that there's an ancient ritual taking place that we're not even fully aware of, I don't think, because it's so old. Those folks practice sorcery and magic and things of that nature, and so they're preparing a kingdom that they'll have a king over, but it'll be wed to this divine feminine type thing here. Okay, so let me read about the Ben stone real quick. The Ben stone, named after the mound, was a sacred stone in the temple of Ra at Heliopolis. Well, that's interesting. Egyptian Anu or Lunu. Well, I must say that's interesting. So it actually calls the word Egyptian Anu. So I guess when I read this about Orion being Anu's shepherd, I guess that means he's the Egyptian shepherd. So it makes sense why the shafts line up with his belt. But also it's interesting to note when Yahweh talks about loosening the bands or belt over Orion, he's probably making a clear reference here to the rise and fall of these pharaonic shepherds that come into the land. So, but think about it. So maybe some of these pharaohs and such from the past that were in these positions of leadership and power, maybe they were as stupid and empty-headed as Biden. I mean, true Nimrods, if you think about it. Can you imagine any worse fate than being ruled over by a complete moron and knowing it? You know what I mean? So the sad thing is that most people don't realize it. So that's how they're led into spiritual captivity, right? By all these false shepherds and people promoting the Pokemon and things of that sort. So, when Yahweh bonded them out of Egypt, as it discusses in Deuteronomy, he's like, hey, if you guys keep my laws and my ways and you remember me, hey, we'll have a long relationship, make a covenant with you guys and we'll get out of here. Of course, then he led them through the deserts and did a purification manner. And after the selection process was over, they were then led into the promised land, right? That was promised to them. And so we'll talk about Euphrates here in a little bit, where that's one of the boundary markers for the territory that was given to them with this land covenant that they received. So, these tyrants rise and fall in the land of Egypt, which our country is modeled, the United States is modeled after Egypt. And at the beginning of her music video, it was talked about Memphis. But, Memphis is in Tennessee, along the Mississippi. You got that delta. And
Memphis, Tennessee is also kind of a well-known place of evil.
Well, they probably make a lot of contracts down there in Tennessee, around Nashville and such. Right. So a lot of contracts. I think
they have pyramid too over there.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. There's a lot of mounds over here too, where the giants had been buried in them and such. So there's probably some symbolism there for giants to be buried in these mounds, yes. These Ben stone type things. Well, with the intention of being resurrected one day, I'm sure. That's the whole point of them.
They do have a pyramid in Memphis. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, and I was doing some research on mummies the other day, and the word for mummy, it's not, mummy is like a bastardization of the word referring to mummy. It's actually Orion itself is what mummy is. So basically all of these shepherds, they all get mummified. With the hope of being resurrected one day, essentially. So it makes some of these movies that we see, like The Mummy Returns and The Scorpion King and various other motifs that crop up. Or in the case with Nimrod himself, which the body of Nimrod was discovered in Iraq during the Iraq conflict. And so what do you think they've done with his body? You know, we've covered the topic in the past of the therapeutic known as mummiya. And that's when you would take you would take the remains of a mummy and crush it and pulverize it into a powder, and then that would be used as medicine. So think just for a moment, like if that were put into the Pokemon. So I mean, I know we talk about Hydra, this, that, and the other, but one of the things I'm concerned about, maybe those fragments that they're seeing there are really smashed up Nimrod fragments. So, you know, if you were to take this Pokemon, you know, you're literally putting the Orion in you, the giant false shepherd, if you will. It's like the epitome of the right eye blindness thing. Sorry. It's just really profound to me. So let me read about this Ben bird.
Real quick, before you move on, we did want to mention, I wanted to mention, that Katy Perry pretended or tried to be a Christian singer before she
I forgot
decided to sell her soul. And she literally says...
she wanted to be the Amy Grant of music, of Christian music or something, but couldn't make it, so she had to sell her soul to the devil, I think.
Do you mind if I show that real quick?
Oh, go ahead, please. I just probably didn't remember it perfectly, but I think that was the gist of what she said.
But
oh, gosh, it sounds like a robot. I can't believe the stuff that goes on. Let me try.
Take your time, man.
place a state date almost 10 years.
Oh, why does this happen to me? I haven't been able to play anything.
I noticed it was giving you some guff the other day. You must be doing something right for them to be throttling you like that.
Yeah, it's really not working.
At least to God.
This is amazing. What I'm going to try is one more, and if it doesn't work...
Gospel record 15.
Wow, what a trip.
What is going on, dude? That's wild. Because, I mean, this is working, so why shouldn't that be working?
You're doing it now, but...
Okay, forget it. I'm done trying. I'll
That's
copy the
weird.
link. I'll share it. Watch it. And then another thing that she did is she bought or went to buy this land off of these nuns. The archdiocese, like, undersold these ladies or something. I can't remember. He screwed them over and ended up killing one of these nuns because of the stress of this lawsuit and Katy Perry demanding that this be her land. So she not only pretended that she wanted to be, well, I don't know if pretend is right. She wanted to be a Christian artist, but she became one of the most satanic non-Christian artists. And through all that, she stole a beat from a Christian artist who sued her and now gets profit from her biggest song ever. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So back to you.
Well, and we talked about this morning how I had mentioned like how you weren't supposed to and be involved in litigation, like Christians weren't supposed to sue or anything like that. And you asked me like, well, where is that? So it was in, I think of 1 Corinthians, Paul talks about how Christians shouldn't sue another Christian, or I guess a Jew, another Jew. So it wouldn't apply in this case if she wasn't actually a Christian. So nothing seems to be wrong with the flame deal there. But then here we got her suing the nuns, right? So here she's saying she's a Christian, but then suing the nuns, doing what you're not supposed to do, and then in turn gets sued herself. So what I've heard some rabbis say is that Hashem, if you get judged instantly, that is, oftentimes it'll be, well, it's always this way, but measure for measure. But in her case, I guess since she really pushed the matter, her punishment got kind of maybe sped up. And then what do you know? She's trying to sue and then gets sued. So, but she's not a believer, right? So it's fair game. So it's kind of interesting to see where the legal system actually worked out in the favor of somebody that wasn't so rich and famous.
Very surprising. I was very surprised when he won that lawsuit because, by the way, if anyone here has not heard of Flame, no surprise, he is not a big name. You might say, well, I just don't know Christian rappers. And, well, even in the Christian rap and hip-hop community, Flame is not known. So he's not some big name out there raking in millions of dollars or signing on a label like Lecrae or KB or any of these other guys. So anyway, so, yeah.
This Ben stuff here, so many Ben stones often carved with images and inscriptions are found in museums around the world. The bird deity, I often don't hear it described as a deity necessarily, but anyway, it says this bird deity Bennu was probably the inspiration for the phoenix, was venerated at Heliopolis, where it was said to be living on the Ben stone or on the holy willow tree. Interesting. I didn't know that they necessarily venerated the willow. Okay, according to Barry Kemp, the connection between the the phoenix and the sun may well have been based on alliteration. The rising Weben, or of the sun sending its rays toward the Ben. This must be why they polish the cap and make it shiny, because it's supposed to be a reference to the sun sending its rays toward the stone. Anyway, it says on which the Ben bird lives. So like the first mound of earth was what this bird rested upon. So the rest element is kind of here too, because otherwise it had just been flying for who knows how long over the waters, which again, kind of like the Genesis thing, it more or less be kind of relating the spirit, if you will, to this bird that's just moving over the waters, right? And then it, I think at some point it lets out a great cry, but anyway. So, and the sun may have well been based on the alliteration, the rising Weben of the sun, sending its rays toward the Ben, on which the Bennu bird lives. It's saying here the utterance or verse is coming from number 600 and 1652 of the pyramid texts. Speaks of this character known as Autumn, as you rose up as the Ben in the mansion of the Bennu in Heliopolis. So here's a mention of like a mansion. Kind of hear language like that, where our Lord prepares for us mansions, and he goes to prepare a place for us, etc. So see a lot of mimicry here with these elements. And then it says, from the earliest times, the portrayal of Ben was styled in two ways. The first was as a pointed pyramidal form, kind of like this right here, caps, which oftentimes pyramids are unfinished, lacking this. And it says, which was probably the model for pyramids and obelisks. And the other form was round-topped, which we kind of see depicted here on the boat, which was exactly the same boat she was using. So I don't know if she was trying to like be the bird itself or what. Oh yeah, she has wings in the end, right? So she, like, yeah, maybe she's trying to like stylize herself as this Bennu bird.
And blonde hair. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, her hair color did change, didn't it? Okay, and so let me continue here, which is probably the model for pyramids and obelisks. The other form was round-topped. This was probably the origin of Ben as a freestanding votive object and an object of veneration. During the 5th dynasty, the portrayal of Ben was formalized as a squat obelisk like this here. Later, during the Middle Kingdom, this became a long, thin obelisk. So just like the one we have in DC, just like the one Rome has in at the Vatican. And then I think there's a third one at, is it London or Paris maybe? One of those two cities, I think, have an obelisk as well. So when you obviously think, well, what does that mean? Well, it's basically this Ben stone that they're referencing here, which this bird would live lighted upon, and it would be its habitation where it lives. Okay, so during the 5th dynasty, the portrayal of Ben stone was formalized as a squat obelisk. Later in the Middle Kingdom, became a long, thin obelisk. In the Amama period, rather, the tomb of Panahesi, the Ben is seen as a large round-top stela standing on a raised platform. So quite a thing of intrigue. actually have one more link about the Ben stone. I'm not going to read it extensively, but there were a couple mentions here of the phoenix. And since I have a dark phoenix, dark horse kind of reference there, I have another link we can share about the. Oh yeah, here it is, the dark phoenix.
And just
so
to
that's
let
why
you
I
know,
wanted to mention this. Oh yeah, go ahead. What?
We're 2 hours and 55 minutes in.
Okay, well, I'll do my best to get through the rest of this quick. But thank you all for sticking with me. I was cramming a lot into this. Okay, so know that 13's all over the money, like 13 stars, 13 arrows, 13. I think the olive leaves and the arrows both have 13. There's 13. Sorry, I got a little rattled there with the 13 thing. But anyway, a lot of 13 symbolism. And then let me find the phoenix thing here. Okay, so the most important temple in Heliopolis was the, quote, mansion of Ben. Ben means son, by the way. So you could say that this is the mansion of the son, or son of sun. Also known as the mansion of the phoenix. In the middle of the temple is an open courtyard, stood an obelisk on top of which sat the Ben stone. The Ben stone looked like a small pyramid. The Ben stone was seen as the solidified seed of autumn, the stone of creation. Interesting. And it was on this stone that the phoenix or Bennu bird would return every 12.594 years and place its new egg. At the monument, a new era of mankind was started. The Bennu bird came from the Isle of Fire, a mythical place where the gods were born, it says. And then this was another reason I wanted to get this particular website. It says here, the Ben stone could have been the same stone as Jacob slept on in Genesis 28:11, otherwise known as Jacob's pillar, because there is some historical evidence that Abraham was an Egyptian pharaoh. But anyway, I mean, they were in Egypt anyway, so I mean, that alone is enough of a connection. But anyway, this is an interesting site to get a little more information about the Ben stone. Now, this was a lyrical interpretation of Dark Horse. I'm not going to go over this, but there were some interesting, I think it actually puts the top rated ones on the first page. So let me retrieve that real quick because it changes the link. Well, I guess I could just, okay. I'm just going to say, I can just put a 1 at the end apparently. Okay, so here you go. If you want to read some interpretations, I think we kind of got it correct, but it's just funny to see how many people are like, she's making a deal with Satan, et cetera, over and over again. So it's pretty obvious to a lot of people, I think, what the video's about. But anyway, I just, for the sake of seeing other folks review it, you can see that. This is Dark Phoenix. So we're talking about the Ben and the Phoenix. I'm going to go, I've not seen a lot of these movies, but it looked kind of interesting how they were portraying her. This would strike us too, right? It's a 2-minute, 32-second thing.
I don't know. Not sure.
Well, I'll just save it for the
play.
end then. I'll just save it for the end. And that way, if we do get struck, it'll be at the end. Okay, so here's the article. The Euphrates River drying up. And so to save time, I won't read extensively. But I did want to mention a couple things here. On this day, Hashem, the name, made a covenant with Abram. So we're talking about the covenant with Noah earlier in the evening. But here's another one where he made a covenant with Abram, saying, to your offspring I assign this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates. The prophet Jeremiah described how the waters of Babylon, the region currently including Syria and Iraq, where we recovered the body of Nimrod, the Assyrian, would dry up as a punishment for the idolatrous practices, the devastation being so complete as to render the region, once part of the so-called Fertile Crescent, uninhabitable. A drought against its waters, that they be dried up, for that it is the land of idols. They are besotted by their dread images. Assuredly, wildcats and hyenas shall dwell there, and ostriches shall dwell there. It shall never be settled again, nor inhabited throughout the ages. So we hear about how Babylon, the merchants won't deal with her, so on and so forth. And anyway, this is a good article. I wish I could have shared more of this. So please take the time to go to this and read it a little bit. I still need to finish parts of it myself, but it does mention the Tishrin Dam, which, remember, the Tishri is the month that we just left. We're in Shesvan now, but Tishri was September, essentially. So like the month that they say the world was created, here we have a dam pretty much named after that month also, and it's at the head of it. So, you know, I think it's kind of interesting to look at this and think about how that all fits together and what's implied by the Euphrates River drying up. It's kind of connected to the war and the lack of communications going on here, but also there's supernatural, spiritual thing at work here where it's not being permitted to rain. He's allowing it to dry up, etc. So if you guys glean anything from that, please share in the research place, but I'm going to keep that one open for me to read later. I'm sure we've read this in the past, so we don't have to go over this extensively, but because it is relevant, you know, I kind of seen Katy Perry's character, very symbolic of this whore Babylon mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, abominations of the earth. Now, mind you, she's not wearing a veil, which is the mark of a harlot. So again, when people are trying to, whatever spirit is in these folks trying to make you wear a mask, that is very harlot-esque, the Jezebel spirit. So, you know, that's a fruit, just like the Judas fruit. You know, no rest for the wicked. Here's another fruit of sorts from a different tree, but anyway. Okay, so persecution, the persecution here, this is like the Antichrist spirit, essentially, because they persecute the Christians. So she'll become drunk with the blood. Well, we see her turn one of the dudes into something and drink them, right? So there are some interesting parallels here. I highly doubt they were going for that necessarily, but again, the fruits reveal themselves, right? Anyway, it talks more about the mystery explained and then the victory of the Lamb. So earlier we were talking about the Messiah, so on and so forth. So I think I shared that. Okay. And so this fits in, I think, with Psalm 137, if I arranged these correctly. Within the context, it says, "By the rivers of Babylon, daughter of Babylon, doomed to destruction, blessed is he who repays you and as you have done to us. Blessed is he who seizes your infants and dashes them against the rocks." So, in other words, they're being blotted out of history. Their name isn't going to be permitted. Their seed does not carry on, etc. Actually, there was another verse in that I wanted to read. I think it might have been prior to verse 8. "By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof." Well, we were just reading about willows a minute ago in reference to the Ben stone, right? So it shows here they're still in Egypt, hanging their harps on willows because they're in spiritual captivity. They have nothing to be happy about, right? They can't sing a song while in captivity. For there that they carried us away captive required of us a song. So they get them and take them captive, and like, well, sing us a song. Like, well, we can't do that. We're not happy. So for there that they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing us one of those songs of Zion. That song you were singing sounds so beautiful. Well, it sounds beautiful because they were happy and joyous and singing praise, but they can't recreate that authenticity because they're in captivity. So they're just hanging their harps on the willows, it says. So they're in captivity. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? We see in Revelation that the elect, the 144,000, are singing a song. So it shows that they're no longer in captivity, right? They're being freed at harpazo. They're being bought out of Egypt, out of bondage. So it's a repeat, a second Exodus, if you will, and quite possibly another covenant. How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. And again, another reference perhaps to Zechariah 11:17 with the idle shepherd. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee, as thou hath served us. Happy shall he be. Oh, I don't have to read that part again. But, it's kind of like a form of abortion in a sense, infanticide. But our country's doing a good job of that without any help. And we don't, obviously I don't have to read this right now, but maybe in the future we can do a little more detailed study here in the Revelation 17-18 range. But again, lament over Babylon. Babylon has fallen. These themes reoccur again. So we're going to see like the selection of a king for this divine feminine type thing, and then Yahweh puts it in their hearts to destroy her, right? And so then that occurs. So it's a judgment of sorts. So to talk more about that, let's use Jeremiah 51 through 27 real quick. Okay. Remember, I was talking about raise it to the foundation, the cornerstone. So here we see Babylon's punishment. No one shall retrieve from you a cornerstone or foundation stone, because you will become desolate forever, declares the Lord. Raise a banner in the land. So again, this ensign, or we referenced this again earlier. Raise a banner in the land, blow the ram's horn among the nations, prepare the nations against her, summon the kingdoms against her, Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz, appoint a captain against her, bring up horses like swarming locusts. Kind of see that in Revelation 9, where it talks about the king over them, right? So it's saying, appoint a captain against her. So we know that the locust king, as it were, is basically kind of what helps destroy Babylon. So it's kind of like this captain against her. And then we've seen in Proverbs 30 how the locusts have their bands, but no king. And bands is a military term, often associated with Orion as well. So it's almost as if it's saying, appoint a captain against her. So it'd be like, again, using the Dark Horse Katy Perry song as a reference, it'd be like her picking the king, but then that king being who destroys her kingdom, right? So that's kind of a way to look at it here. And so the Tammuz, Ishtar, Inanna, Dumuzi kind of motif there of like the whore of Babylon and the beast, the idol shepherd, Nimrod, Nebuchadnezzar motif, Jezebel. Although I don't think King Ahab necessarily makes a good example of the idol shepherd. Well, idol shepherd, sure, but not so much like the Dumuzi, Tammuz thing. But then again, we see Elijah destroying that kingdom, much like this captain was. So maybe he would make a much better example. So preparing the nations for battle against her, the kings of the Medes and the governors and all their officials in the lands they rule. So the politicians, if you will. I saw a funny meme today. It apparently was on a Dairy Queen sign, and it said, have we tried throwing a politician in a volcano yet to appease the spirit or something?
Yes, let's try that. Please.
I thought that was hilarious.
All of them could go.
Because like back in the day, that's the type of thing they might have done, you know. But it's like, whoa, we can't do that. They'd rather sacrifice our unborn children. Okay, so Leviticus 7:36. I know I've went over, but we're so close to being done. Leviticus 7:36, the priest's portion. This is the portion of the offerings made by the fire to the Lord from Aaron and his sons since the day they were presented to serve the Lord as priests. So again, remember, that's when they took all the rods from each of the tribes, put them in the ark, and I can't remember if it was like overnight or how long it had been, but they when they took the rods out, I think they carved their names on it or their tribe or something like that. And Aaron's rod was the one that had bloomed and had well, not only did it have leaves, it had blooms and almonds on it. It was fruitful. It was a fruitful rod, and so he was chosen as the priest line, and so his sons then were the Levite priests, come from Aaron. And so this is talking about their portion. So this is where the whole point of tithing comes from, because like the Levites are supposed to be the pastors, the shepherds, if you will, leading back to Yah's way. Okay, so this is the law of the burnt offering, the grain offering, the sin offering, the guilt offering, and the ordination offering, and the peace offering. So the priests were considered like the well, if you go back to the scapegoat ritual for Yom Kippur, they were also the ones that went into the Holy of Holies, spoke the name, sprinkled the blood, and of course if they were impure, they got zapped dead and had to be drug out by their cable toe tied around their leg, which is where the Masons get the symbolism for their cable toe as well. So they're fashioning themselves as a priest, yes, but they're fancying themselves rather as a shepherd. So, you know, how many of those guys are leading people back to the Word or to the Father? Not many or any. Okay, we got a couple video clips here at the end, but to preface this one, which is, we covered the invasion maybe a month or two ago, and I think it did even mention this link here, but just to be kind of complete with the idea, the beginning of invasion, I guess we can mute it and just replay the beginning here. And see if I can find it. Maybe. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to find the compromise here. I don't want to play too much of just intros.
Oh, like when you tried to give me that video on the game, I couldn't get it to play.
Oh, it's playing. It's just.
I know. I mean,
playing.
I couldn't get anything to play. And just like tonight, I couldn't get anything to play again.
They got your number, dude.
It all plays fine every other time. It just doesn't play when I'm trying to show it.
She's trying to stay awake because if she falls asleep. This caught my eye just going through it the first time before the show. She looks at the clock. I had a clock stop. I'm looking at it right now. I haven't bothered it since. It stopped at that exact time. So I don't know what that.
I almost thought it was going to be 3:22, but no, it's 3:34.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. So that caught my attention.
Maybe somebody knows what 3:34 would be.
I think it's some reference to like the Antichrist spirit mocks the 3 a.m. time, because it's supposed to be a mockery of when Christ died at the 3rd hour of the day or something like that. And it's said that the 3rd hour is the darkest hour before the dawn.
The devil's hour.
So, like, yeah, she's literally in the devil's hour right now. She's fighting sleep, trying not to fall asleep, because if she falls asleep, it's some type of chemical reaction occurs when they're asleep that works with in this story, the Pokemon, the wild Pokemon, as it were, combines with some type of sleep hormone to basically convert their DNA or something. There it is. I was looking for this particular.
Doc says it's probably 3:33:33.
All right, so watch closely here, and you'll see there's a spaceship, and it breaks
I thought
apart.
it was going to be a Hydra.
But it breaks apart here in the atmosphere, and kind of does look like falling stars, I guess, if you consider that. But as it breaks apart in the sky, various pieces land all over the place, and of course you got the folks out in the country being like, well, we saw it shooting across the sky, and some of us went over there and touched it, and so on and so forth. There she is. So anyway, they give a piece of this to like the FBI dude that shows up to investigate, and so he's one of the main characters that's working with the girl that we saw in the very beginning. Well, anyway, he gets cut or stabbed by the black goo that's on one of these things, and that's how it all begins. So, like, this pathogen comes from quote-unquote space, which, again, we've talked about the meaning of the word influenza, meaning influence of the stars. And again, enza means giant, but with a female connotation. So we are literally under the influence of the female giant. I didn't even mean to pause right here, but look at this. So right there, we got an obelisk. So they must be in DC or something, I guess, because that's the only obelisk I'm aware of. But here we got an obelisk standing in the background, which now we know is a Ben stone, right? But then look down here. The network they're using is, what is that, MSNBC. Well, this is the peacock, which is also the Ben bird, the Bennu bird, rather, is stylized as a peacock as well. And I forgot to mention this, but in the Dark Horse video, her cat servants, like her personal guards, are decorated with peacock feathers around their necks. It's kind of an interesting detail to catch, because I only caught it because I was paying really close attention to like what their jewelry looked like and stuff. But they did have peacock feathers on them, and so that again is a reference to the Bennu bird. And we've talked about this in the past. The peacock's also related to Malek, which means king, or sailor of the waters above. Malek Tau, which would, from what I can gather, would roughly translate to king of the way. There we go. It lagged out a little bit. So from what I can tell, it would translate roughly to that. So again, like a shepherd. Which way are they leading you to, right? If it's not the straight and narrow way and the narrow gate, then it's the wrong way. So anyway, this just goes on to talk about the intro of the movie, but this dude right here, who kind of becomes her like boyfriend, I think, or her love interest perhaps, but I think he's got a son or something, or she's got a son, or kind of having to navigate the situation, like there's an outbreak, quarantine, so on and so forth. And they got their base of operations in here, and then this dude that's analyzing it, because the reason I really wanted to bring this up is because it reminded me of the Dr. Madej video, where, let me get to this video, or this movie's on, yes, there's our buy or rent version right here, but you can find it, the whole movie, online. It's just it cuts off like the last 20 minutes or something, so you can still watch most of the movie. But anyway, this guy is talking about how it's clearly not from Earth, and it's an extremophile, meaning it can survive in extreme conditions. Notice how it's spiky and stuff. Well, when he handles it at one point, he gets, I think it's like right after he leaves this. Notice they're in a tent, which this is a sukkot, a tabernacle that they're in, and they got this plague of sorts that they're dealing with inside the temple, more or less the temple that they've constructed, rather. And again, so influence of the stars falling to earth, science, religion of science here, building their own sukkot to study it. And let's see, there's a part here where he gets infected. Just want to help too. I didn't realize the conversation was so long. Yeah, she hands him, here's a piece of the spacecraft. Boom, he gets stabbed by one of the little things, and that's where it begins with him. So then he becomes possessed. Oh, there's an eye. I didn't even notice that.
Body snatchers.
Dude, right there. As soon as he gets infected, it's in the background. So anyway, then he takes it upon himself at that point to start infecting people all over the place and basically doing damage control for the aliens, so to speak.
Invasion of the body. In fact, I was watching that one scene that you showed me, and that's what it looks like. She's like, "Have you gotten your shot?" And it's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where you have to pretend. You got to watch the 1978 version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers if you have not. It's totally worth it.
Sure, I have. Red Door. That seems symbolic somehow. Anyway, this was the article that went with that, and then we'll cover the Dark Phoenix last. So this is the NASA, which is the Hebrew word for what? Lies? Lie, I think. Much like how Devok, which is COVID spelled backwards, is a word for possession. So again, we're dealing with idol shepherds and good shepherds and bad shepherds. We're all going to get possessed by one or the other, so you need to make sure it's with the good shepherd, because if you get coupled with the bad shepherd, that's destruction. So you want to be drawn to the right breast, harpazo, just like Jesus's disciples were coming to him and hugging him, it said earlier, or the one was anyway. Abraham's bosom, these trends. The left hand's associated with destruction, venom, virus, sword of the Lord, if you will, which Orion has a sword in his belt, so could well be a reference to that as well. So anyway, this NASA Eclipse balloon project, when we were talking about the eclipse a few weeks ago, I think I did mention how they had been doing this, and when we talked about Invasion, the Body Snatchers, I think I did mention this, but I didn't go into great detail, and I won't tonight either, except to mention that they did. I'm surprised they didn't do 33 balloons, but anyway, they did 34 of these
odd.
Balloons.
They're only one off.
Yeah, why not, right? Maybe they were just thought they'd be safe in case one failed. But anyway, we see here that the balloons were called microstrat, which I'm assuming is some type of reference to using microsystems in the stratosphere to simulate life's ability to survive beyond Earth and maybe even on Mars. So, again, the extremophile thing, they were NASA was providing the team with 2 metal cards about the size of a dog tag. The cards have harmless yet environmentally resilient bacteria dried onto their surface, and the card will fly up in the with the balloon while the other remains on the ground. A comparison of the two will show the consequences of exposure to Mars-like conditions such as bacterial survival and genetic changes. Interesting. So they're trying to observe the effect of cosmic rays and things like that. But what's interesting about this experiment is they've done it in the path of the eclipse, the ecliptic. So as the shadow is moving from Salem to Charleston, across through the 7 Salems at that, they did it in that exact path. They did this experiment in the path of that, which was the first, which is like the beginning of the tribulation period, essentially, if you use that as the marker for beginning. I just found that really strange. So we'll have the second eclipse making the X in 2024, April 8th, 2024. So it'd be interesting to see if NASA decides to do another type of experiment like that. Just keep your eyes peeled on this outfit right here. How scientists predicted corona's appearance during August 21st, 2017 to what? Well, I guess we may as well look at that real quick. So let me share that.
They predicted it. Yeah, kind of like Event 201 predicted it too, huh?
By the way, since you didn't see the stuff I sent on the Hippocratic Oath, I sent you some videos of Fauci right before Event 201, like just days, and what he was saying had to happen in order for us to all take the vaccine, and how the government would have to get involved. But maybe we'll save that for next time.
Remember, folks, his name in Italian means sickle. Oh, and by the way, thank you for mentioning that, because I did forget that his National Geographic documentary has an incredible number of dislikes.
Go
probably
dislike
more
it if
than
you haven't. Mm-hmm.
Probably more dislikes than Biden at this point has amassed. Which I heard they want to start removing dislikes off videos that Biden was doing because it's just so disproportionate. They can't afford the bad press. It's bad enough when they remove comments and stuff.
I'm surprised. It's weird that they allow it in the first place, though. There's something.
Well, but they probably didn't expect them to be that
93. Well, they're still allowing it though.
Let's go, Brandon. Right?
They're not. They're still allowing it, and they're not taking them off. So I'm gonna send the link to everybody to go hit the dislike on this. But yeah, let's go, Brandon. All right, go back to you.
Doc Michael said something kind of interesting. Said his door was painted red. Man, that's interesting.
Against his wishes.
Yeah, if you ever glean anything from that, let me know. That would be interesting. I couldn't see what the number was on the door, but it looked like a 2-digit number. Normally, it's like 101 or something like in the Matrix, for instance. But it reminds me of that song, I See a Red Door and I Want to Paint It Black. It's a Rolling Stones song, right?
That it is.
Paint It Black. That's what it's called. Okay, so this is. Okay, let's see. So let me just catch this real quick. It was August 14th, 2017, just 1 week before the moon would cross the paths with the sun and the earth, casting its shadow across the United States. The entire country buzzed with anticipation for the fleeting chance to see the corona, the sun's tenuous outer atmosphere. But the wait was uniquely nerve-wracking for a group of scientists at Predictive Science Incorporated. Well, there we go. Somebody needs to look into this outfit. Predictive Science Incorporated. It's not really predictive if you're behind it. I'm sorry. More like Complicit Science Incorporated. A private research company in San Diego. They had just published a prediction of what the corona would look like on August 21st, the day of the total solar eclipse. How would their prediction, the result of the complex numerical model and tens of hours of computing, compare to the real thing? Waiting for totality, you know exactly what you've predicted and what you're experiencing. Predictive science researcher Zoran Milk said, because you work with the model so much and see the predictions so many times, it's burned into your brain. There's a lot of anxiety because if you're totally wrong, it's a bit embarrassing. Well, they were not wrong because they were behind it. But yeah, anyway, I didn't realize that they predicted it. So NASA, it'd be probably worthwhile to see what the connections are between Bow Gates, Event 201, and this, because it was only we got August right here, or that's 2018 here. But so we got an August date right here. Event 201 was in October. Was that 2017 though? Or 18? I can't even remember at this point. But I think it was 2018. So it might have been like a year later. So I guess they predicted a year ahead. Is that what they're saying?
For what?
Okay. I guess the
Oh, for the
pandemic, as
eclipse.
it were,
Oh,
began
the
what?
pandemic. Yeah,
Like
they were doing
October
that October of 2019.
2019. Okay. So, yeah, that's like a full 2 years then. So this is around the same time Cicada warned us about the virus too. So, maybe we'll see some parallels there. But it's like these folks that work at MIT sometimes don't play by the rules that they're asked to play by, and they leak things out occasionally. So who knows? Maybe this was just somebody letting the cat out of the bag. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's just predict it when they really just know about it. So who knows what's going on there? That's some tomfoolery for sure. I'm gonna keep that one up to read it though.
By the way, just
And
wanted to mention
this is the last thing.
93,000 dislikes on the Fauci film to 7.5 likes, and there's 19,000 comments, and I guarantee you, a whole bunch of them say "Let's go, Brandon." So.
Yeah, let's go, Brandon. For those that don't know, that's just substitute Joe Biden for
Joe
Brandon.
Biden.
Think of
Some stupid
slander.
reporter tried to say, "Oh, they're so excited! You could hear them saying "Let's go, Brandon," and you could hear them not
Strange
saying,
coincidence, because it's like that meme of is this dress blue or gold? It's like, what do you hear?
I heard I heard what was actually.
No, I
being
know,
said. That's what
power of suggestion though. Like, if you want to hear Brandon, you're gonna hear Brandon, I guess.
I don't know.
It's just funny. And this is the last link I had. So this is a really short trailer for an X-Men movie called The Dark Phoenix. Now I haven't seen this, but I've been doing some research on it, and it's pretty wild, honestly. So what seems to occur in this movie, because I don't think it's really shown in great detail, is that she's part of this space mission, like we're just talking about here, in the upper atmosphere, only she's in the X-Men spaceship or whatever. But something goes wrong, and there's a breach in the hull or whatever. But this Phoenix energy, this entity, basically possesses Jean Grey and makes a deal with her. She wants to save her friends from dying, and so it possesses her and allows them all to live, like through its influence. And then, intermittently throughout her experience after that, she'll become like emotionally disturbed or possessed or whatever, and she'll just start destroying stuff. So I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. So I wanted to kind of reference this because it kind of reminded me of again, of this dark horse, dark phoenix kind of interesting element there. Bennu bird. Oh, there is sound here, so maybe I'll turn that off. But she's sitting here like crying, like, why'd you make me kill my friends, kind of thing. Because like once in a while it'll take over and make her go crazy. Oh man, that reminds me of Venom. And how it, so it's very much like a symbiote.
Everything you were just saying was the same thing. You have to accept it, give it permission, and then it takes over time to time.
So she like acts out occasionally and kills her friends and stuff like that. Let me see if there's a better, like, I'm gonna have to skip ahead a little bit. Okay, maybe this is where okay, it's still in the preview. Marvel. Okay, here it is. I guess she encounters like the White Queen or something, and she's trying to like.
Jean.
Oh, sorry.
And if you stop fighting that force inside you, if you embrace it, you will possess the very power of a god.
That was the key right there. So the White Queen tempts her into allowing herself to be
there he
possessed.
is. There, you're right.
Yeah, the beast appears So, like, yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because I'd already forgot about that. So there's Beast. Whoa, this is kind of weird.
From the movie Split and Mr. Glass and Glass.
Yeah. So he's literally the Beast from Mr. Glass and Split. But then also this character is named Beast, and he's all blue, just like the Egyptian guards in Dark Horse. Katy Perry's Dark Horse, her guards were all blue, right? So, and so here we got the Beast again, and she's referred to as a beast, and they call her Karma, right? But she's also got the blue eye, and the blue is kind of like the divine feminine energies, I guess. So, really interesting. I didn't expect all those parallels, but. So you got the Beast. And the so she'd be like the Katy Perry kind of thing, where she was just destroying everybody.
I don't know what to do.
Oh, they don't understand. They feel.
Wait, there's music. Sorry, I keep forgetting about the. Don't want to get banned. So yeah, all the dramatic music and stuff taking place. Everybody's trying to fight her, but she, just like in the Katy Perry thing, she just has to like wave her hand and. You know, they split into atoms or whatever. So,
this guy in the wheelchair has always been bald, really? I bet there was got to be a time that he wasn't. Come on.
Professor Xavier. I don't know. There's sometimes they show him as a youth, like he and Magneto were friends, and they used to like go ride horses and stuff together. I think that's how he broke his back, was like on a horse riding accident.
It's cheesy that he's bald all his life.
Oh, here's where she gets possessed by the Phoenix spirit while she's out in the upper atmosphere. So again, like with this NASA thing, you know, it's kind of an interesting parallel there too.
Wow,
what are they really doing? Oh yeah, and her husband is Cyclops, which is, you know, one-eyed giant, right? So again, we got this interesting parallel there with the Dark Phoenix is actually wed to the Cyclops, or a one-eyed shepherd. So like you got your Inanna, goddess of destruction, married to the Dumuzi Tammuz shepherd type. So anyway, I've never seen the movie, but I had to do some research on it just to kind of understand this Dark Phoenix thing. But I guess this is canon and appears in the Marvel universe. In which case the Phoenix clones her body and uses her new body as the vessel for it to basically fool everybody thinking it's her, but really it's this entity. So that kind of gets screwy in the comic book a little bit, but I don't think it does that here in the movie. So it's a little easier to follow, unless she just gets possessed and loses herself. So kind of the same thing, I guess, but like her eyes will go dark, her voice will change. Like it really makes her look possessed. So anyway, I just think it's interesting because like the Mr. Glass guy is trying to basically get mutants to be public and so on and so forth, but kind of reminds me of the sweet tooth thing, like they're trying to change genetics and stuff. So I don't know, man. It just kind of relates to the ox symbolism, the OX, which is on the Pythagorean gematria tool. Ox, O and X both line up with the 6. Same with F. So Fox is literally FOX is 666. So Ox is 66. So when you see the X, because if you saw the before I X'd it out there when it showed Phoenix, whatever, they had the circle around the X. So they always sneak in that ox symbolism. But anyway, it's an alchemical symbol, also representing the fixed salt, I think, preparation of the great work. So a lot of this seems to indicate that like they're trying to achieve a vessel that can capture a spiritual essence, and they think it'll be like some type of god creature or whatever. So
Anyway, that's all I had for tonight. I know that was a long one, but
It was.
We've missed some shows, so I had to make up a bunch of stuff from previous
3
things
hours
before
and
no longer
38
relevant.
minutes. Here we go. No, that's
Yeah, it
good.
was too bad it wasn't 3-3-3-3-3-3, right? Or
Right,
whatever.
so many threes. I've been seeing 3:33 and 11:11 a lot on clocks. Those two specifically, not others. So I don't know what it means, but pray for me to know what it means, if it means anything at all.
Look up the verses. Sometimes when that stuff happens to me, I look up verses and find interesting results.
Been a lot lately. A lot. 3:33 and 11:11. And always 12:08 because that's my birthday, December 8th. Pretty.
I'll try to remember that.
Pretty. I'm being shown smart.
Well, oh,
But thank you for all that you do. Thank you for all the time you spend, and it was fun for me to get a little bit more interactive tonight with the Katy Perry stuff and the Dr. Madej stuff, and I enjoyed getting a little bit.
Are you gonna
involved.
email that? Are you gonna email that lady?
Yeah, I should. I
think we should invite her on.
See if she would even give us the time of day. If she's willing to take emails saying it's Hydra vulgaris, then and I believe it must be because I'm a doctor and I should be the expert, but I'm taking emails. Then do you think she'd answer mine? But I'd bet all my crypto she's not going to answer my emails. But yeah, I can try it.
Yeah, I just think it'd be cool. I mean, if she said, yeah, man, I mean, just that'd be pretty cool, you know. So I guess we kind of figure out what because I don't know. I mean, maybe the platform had something to do with it, you know. Like, who knows? Maybe because you know the right questions to ask, being from that background. That guy maybe doesn't have the background required to be a good host. No pun intended. A good host.
Host for demons.
On that note, I guess that's all we have for tonight. Shabbat shalom and many meows.
Shabbat shalom, and thank you for your time. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Farewell. Oh, one last thing. The Hunter moon is the full moon for this month. So I personally found it kind of funny and interesting that the Fauci, aka Mr. Sickle, documentary was released between the harvest moon and the hunter moon, full moons. So there you go. So beware the hunters, beware the Pokemon.
Yes, and don't
Farewell.
get the jab.
Yes, don't. Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right, good night.
You've been under investigation, Mr. Wordsworth. You're found to be obsolete. The purpose of this hearing is to make a finding in the matter and make a sentence accordingly. Do you understand that?
I understand that.
Your occupation?
A librarian.
A librarian. Since there are no more books, Mr. Wordsworth, there are no more libraries. The field investigators in your sector have classified you as obsolete.
There soon may be a time when the robots come alive and the unavoidable battle of flesh and metal will arrive. When the computers made to serve us suddenly become aware through demonic like possession that's been programmed and prepared to replace belief in God with a mechanical device that can change its shape and make a face just like the Antichrist. It's the evilest incarnation that promises transformation, the technological abomination that causes desolation. It's been prophesied to come alive. We've known it throughout time, from the book of Daniel to every sci-fi movie storyline. It's a collision course, and yes, of course, we've set our course to fail. It's an imminent conclusion in the making. Every detail has been analyzed and advertised and televised to see, to synthesize and mechanize mankind bionically as our rights and freedoms crumble and our liberties deplete. How long before they pull our plug and make us obsolete?
There is no God. The state has proven that there is no God.
You cannot erase God with an edict.
You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
Why? No man is obsolete.
You have no function. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, a crawling insect, an
still behind the wheel. But soon they'll take that too with the driverless automobile. And it will absolutely seem crazy to kids in future times that we actually could drive our cars and that it wasn't a crime. That once there was a day we weren't controlled by the machines. In the past when things were crafted by the hands of human beings. When patience was a virtue and quality was key. And the products we created were artistic and unique. In the age when books weren't digital and libraries were real. And the things we own were in the cloud but in our hands to feel. When photographs had solid mass and music was on vinyl. And people made the most of things before the word recycle. If something broke you'd fix it and there were parts you could replace. And the things you couldn't find or afford then you would make. You were guaranteed a warranty without terms or conditions. And a monthly contract wasn't needed and nor was a subscription.
I am a